We are back for episode 37 of the Owl Triangle, and as always, Andy Stevenson and Caolan Dabara are here to talk all things Irish mixed martial arts. Thank you everybody for tuning in and joining us today. We have lots to discuss. Joining us on the show today is Dee Begley, fresh off her Invicta FC signing, and Taka Mhandu joins us also to talk about his recent win in Cage Warriors a little bit later on too. So very excited to get into today's topics. Lots and lots to discuss. As like I said, Andy Caolan here. Thanks for listening. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, tell a friend. Let's get into it. We'll kick off with Shauna Bannon's UFC debut. Obviously, for Shauna, she spoke to you, Andy, last week after losing to Bruna Brazil by decision. Unlucky not to get the job done. I thought the result was the correct result. I had it scored 29-28. And, Shauna, she spoke very well to you, Andy, about, not being able to get going in there. We did see flashes of that in round 3. And it was just a little bit too late for Shauna at that time, unfortunately for her. But these things happen, overall. People are quick to criticize when these athletes go put themselves out there and, things don't go their way. And, there was a lot of negativity that was thrown Shauna's way. But overall, apart from the result, I have to say she represented herself very well and represented Irish mixed martial arts very well throughout the week. Never shied away from any of the media duties, took it all in her stride. Obviously, the fight didn't go her way. And then, the openness and the honesty in the interview after, where, Shauna was always a person, and even the amount of times that I've spoken to her, for a person who doesn't owe us anything, she gives us everything, and you always have to acknowledge and appreciate that, because there's not too many people out there. And I think for anyone else who's listening that maybe wants to criticize her too, is like, put yourself into her shoes as well, putting yourself out there in front of the world and in front of Ireland as well. It's not an easy thing to do, and things didn't go her way, but I'm confident she will bounce back. The next one will be a big one for her, but we'll concentrate on the here and the now, and that's the result. Andy, you spoke with her earlier on this week. You can see that interview on SevereMMA.com. If you haven't checked it out, definitely go over and check it out. Shauna gave a great interview to Andy, just open and honest and raw and emotional, and we can't but be a part of her journey now, especially when she's been so kind with us in the past with her time and sharing her experience coming up, and motherhood and balancing being a professional fighter too. And that was on show, Andy, when she spoke to you earlier on in the week as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, of course, it's not the fairy tale ending to your UFC debut when there was such momentum and such a spotlight put on her. And what I always think is I said this to Paddy Hoolan, and I think I said it to Sean as well, where I feel like it's a double-edged sword being Irish when you're going into the UFC, and especially this time around with Shauna, where there was the whole, the second Irish woman ever, because, for the male fighters, obviously, anytime they go in, they're going to be compared to Conor McGregor, and even the female ones as well. But it was the first time in a long time where we'd had an Irish female in there, and then, as we're aware, Sean is very marketable. Clearly, the UFC saw that. They had her on their media day, which you don't often see. That was coupled with the fact that there's now the TV deal for Virgin Media, where there's an additional spotlight, and it just seemed that the biggest takeaway I got from speaking with Sean is there was a bit of confusion as to what went wrong. Like, she knew what went wrong in terms of the X's and O's of fighting, and that she didn't let her hands go and all that. But it was almost like she was a bit of a passenger of the moment, is kind of the vibe that I got. Like, there was no nerves, there was no, oh shit, I'm in the UFC Oktagon, but it was kind of just like, oh right, we're here, we're at the cage already. Like, it was the moment was just kind of happening, and it almost sounded like an out of body experience. And look, she's bitterly disappointed. She looked absolutely devastated, and as she should be, and as I'd expect her to be. But from speaking with her, there's I can get the feeling that this is going to motivate her and this is going to drive her forward, because, speaking to her, she's already chatting to me about, I want that rematch at some point. It's a frustration, it's disappointment, it's all those things, but it's also like, I didn't go out there and give, and give what I had to give. So it's not like she went, or in her mind anyway, she didn't go out there and show her full skill set and have, a fantastic performance and lose and fall short. it's frustrating because I didn't go out there and give the best account of myself. And that, I imagine that's even more frustrating for her, because it's like, well, that wasn't me, kind of thing. And look, take no credit away from Bruna Brazil. She went out there and she beat her. And I agreed with the scorecards. I thought that Shauna lost the first 2 rounds. Didn't think it was a blowaway, but I thought that Brazil was landing the more impactful shots. But yeah, look, I think there's plenty of positives to take away from it.
100%. And look at talking about the fight itself, Caolan, and we all had been chatting, and we all came to the agreement that, you know, that wasn't the Shauna Bannon that we have known and have seen grow into her professional career. I thought she came off the best performance of her career in her last Invicta fight, and it just didn't translate over into this fight, Caolan.
No, it wasn't the best performance today, but she didn't look out of place either. She did look like she belonged in the UFC Octagon, and that's a credit to her after 5 professional fights and after only returning to the amateur ranks almost 2 years today. It was less than 2 years when she made it from when she returned to amateur on her UFC debut. So it's a massive credit to how much she's developed, and she did look like she belonged in there. The losses are part of the sport. They're big lessons, and as Andy said, it'd be one of those motivating and driving factors to coming back. But she put on a great account for herself all week, handling the media, great representative of Irish MMA, and just maybe grew into the fight a little bit too late in that 3rd round. But besides that, as I said, don't think she looked out of place in the slightest. And hopefully we get to see her in there sometime soon when she feels like she's ready to get back in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult for her, and that's why I would always give her credit to coming out and speaking with you, Andy. But, you know, that was 3 days after the fight happened, so everything is kind of probably still up in the air, and she's still going through that figuring out process as well. But I think we have zero doubt that she'll be back, that she will utilize this for motivation and come back bigger and better in her next fight. And you know, that's an exciting thing to look forward to. Like, the trials and tribulations of a fighter is a roller coaster, and we've seen the highest of highs, witnessed the lowest of lows with all of these fighters, and I just have to give respect for where it's due. You know, where we're in a position where nobody owes us anything, and we're very, very lucky to be in a position where we can, you know, have a conversation with somebody after a win or before a fight, and especially after a loss as well. And it's having that conversation after the loss is just as important as having it after the win. So we're very lucky to be in that position.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more on that. And as you said, like, I was surprised that Shauna kind of came out and spoke, because like many were like, here, look, just give me a few weeks. And I could tell that she was, and like, I think it's pretty obvious, anyone who watched it, like she's going through it in the interviews, like she's feeling all those feelings. And you know what? Look, I've never fought. I've never been in a position where I've come off a loss like that, especially at, you know, when you're at the kind of the pinnacle of your career moment, and falling short like that. It's got to be fucking devastating, but it's probably also important to feel that, like, now that it's happened, to feel it and to feel the pain and to feel, you know, that this has happened, and then it's you know, you kind of, you sit with that for a bit, don't shy away from it, and then it's you know, you move into, right, well, how do I never feel this again? How do I make sure that I do everything in my power to ensure that I'm ready, and I put on a performance that doesn't, you know, replicate the debut. And I've no doubt as well. And like, look, Ian, you've spoken with Shauna many's a time. You've spoken probably more than any other media member. Like, how do you think that she'll respond to this?
I always was very impressed with her mentality, and I feel that she's going to come back stronger. But she also has to allow herself the time to kind of process it and reanalyze and kind of remotivate herself. And then look at what you can't control what has happened. You know, what you can control is what happens in the future. And I have no doubts that Shauna has the skill set and the mentality to bounce back from that as well. And that gets me excited to see her go in there and perform again. I think it's important now for her to give herself a little bit of downtime where she can reassess things, and then it's on to the next one. Look, it's so hard to go undefeated within mixed martial arts, and then, you know, you're going in there, like Queel just said, so young into your UFC career as well, and unfortunately at that stage you cannot afford to have an off night, because, you know, you're likely that you're going to get beaten. It's, you know, it happened with Shauna, and she has to deal with it, and she will deal with it, and she'll come back stronger. And I'm very confident in that. And I mean, now it's on to the next chapter, and it's on to try and rebuild and get that win inside the octagon, which I think she's more than capable of doing. So, you know, it's easy for people to criticize, but I'm always very empathetic in, you know, putting myself in other people's shoes, especially when you're putting yourself out there on that platform, where just some small errors and small corrections can be the difference in between winning and losing. And that's all we're talking about here. Like Caolan said, like you said, Andy, she didn't get blown out of the water. You know, the judges were split on rounds 2 and rounds 3. So, I mean, there's not an awful amount to correct there, but, you know, she'll be lucky to steadily progress. But it's all about the next fight then. You know, don't look too far into the future. And I'm very excited to see what is next for Shauna. And, you know, this loss could be the best thing that ever happened to her.
Yeah. But, look. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I was going to continue on. I didn't know if you wanted to say something else.
No,
but
the last point that I'd make is, I think, you know, I saw a lot of people online being like, oh, no, she was never ready, and just kind of disparaging her. And I think that when someone's in that spot specifically, when there's such a spotlight on, this is going to happen. But if you look at history, like, the vast majority of Irish fighters have not been successful on their UFC debuts. 11 out of 19 fighters have lost, including Shauna, have lost their UFC debut. So this isn't new territory for Irish fighters. But the thing is, you can come back. Neil Seary lost his UFC debut. He came back. He put on a great run that was, you know, he's got loads of Irish fans behind him. So, yeah, big spotlight, big moment, big loss, but hopefully a big return.
Yes, and we shall move on. Like we said, Shauna did shine a great light on Irish mixed martial arts ahead of that fight, and she was the one who was bringing up other names that have been signed as well, and that was Rhys, McKee, Caolan, Loughran, and, you know, giving Paul Hughes a shout out as well. I feel you could add Danny McCormick onto that list, and that, you know, it's
absolutely,
it's very, very important now. We're coming into a stage where we've been getting what we've been looking for the last little while, and that's that little Irish injection of fighters into the UFC. Obviously, with Ian Gary doing so well, and Conor being kind of you know, flirting with the fight with Mike Chandler. Now we have Rhys, McKee. Now we have Caolan, Loughran. We have those fights to look forward to in UFC Paris. You know, we have Dave Shaw coming out and saying that, you know, they're looking to kind of put a show on in Ireland in 2024. I think that's a smart thing to do. I said it to Dana. He's interested in it as well. So I'd be very surprised if that didn't happen next year. And, you know, the way things are shaping up, and we can talk about maybe a little bit about Bellator's future in a little bit, but let's talk about Rhys and Caolan's signing. Rhys McKee first, who went out there and handled himself. I mean, if you're a fighter that has been in a position like Rhys McKee has, where you've got to the pinnacle and you've got your chance in the UFC and it has not worked out for you, what you need to do is go and look at what Rhys McKee did. Like, the way he handled himself and the way he went out and performed in his Cage Warriors fight since he's released was absolutely exceptional. And there's no man that deserves another shot at the UFC rather than Rhys McKee, because, you know, I don't even want to stress about what went wrong the last time, because that's old news now. It's all about what's ahead, and it's Angie Lusa in Paris. It's a good stylistic matchup for Rhys, and it's a second crack at a whip for him as well. And, you know, the way he spoke, like I said, and the way he has fought. Obviously, the fighting is an important thing. You know, you can go out and speak a good game, but you have to perform as well. Everything has worked out so well for Rhys McKee, and I'm very excited, lads. For maybe I'll go to Caolan first. I'm excited for his second stint in the UFC.
As am I. Like, Rhys has been, you know, he's handled it so well, coming back and winning 3 fights on the trot. And do you know what? Maybe not more importantly, but the UFC look for it. He's been finishing, lads, and he's been, and that's what he's actually so good at. Is when he wins, he doesn't just win by outpointing people. He finishes them. The last time he's like, has he even won by a decision? He's usually just finishing.
All finishes. Yeah,
it's incredibly that one draw at Richie Smullen, that was a decision, and obviously some losses. But besides that, he's just prime time entertainment. Like, so he's the type of guy you want in the card, and the way he's handled himself and everything, it's perfect. And this is such a good time for him as well. He's still 27, I believe. So he's got so many years to make a mad run at that division now. I'm really excited for this.
He's a young veteran at this stage, Andy, and even talking about how he handled himself and fought before the UFC signing came, listening to him after it signed as well, it's like the signing for him isn't a celebration. It's getting in there. It's staking that claim in the welterweight division and going in there and putting on a run as well. He's not just happy to be there. He wants to be there and he wants to perform to his full potential. And I think if he goes in, Andy, and does that, he's going to pick up many a win inside the UFC. Yeah,
look, Rhys has a brilliant head on his shoulders more than anything. And like you, I was listening to him. I think he was chatting to Peter Carroll on the Crack, and he was talking about how he was essentially saying how he feels like he's in the right spot. Like he kind of has this belief that he's where he's supposed to be for a reason. And I believe him when he says that. And I believe the same logic there. Because like if you think about not even just where Rhys is now, but where Irish MMA is now, where we have this kind of groundswell, this new wave of going into the UFC, Rhys to me seems like he's in a better position in his career, even though he's come through 2 losses and left the UFC and now had to claw and scrape to make it back. But he's a better fighter now, in my opinion. He's a more mature fighter, but also he's in a spot where he's about to become a father. He's got his own gym. Like all of the things kind of outside the cage are kind of falling into place. Where now it's just primed to fall into place in the cage. And like he's kind of playing with house money, isn't he? Like he's going in here having his first run be getting absolutely smoked by Khamzat Chimaev, and then having that really tough fight with Alex Morono, and then you're out the door. And so you're coming back in, like you can't do worse than that. Not that Rhys did particularly bad, but you know what I mean? Like you go in, you have 2 losses and you come back out. Now you're going in here, and the reaction to him being re-signed, you don't see anyone saying, oh, how is he back in here? Like he lost to Khamzat, this or that. I haven't seen that at all. And that's what I expected to see. And that's a testament to the performances that Rhys has put on, because everyone knows he deserves this. Like there's nobody questioning, oh, is he, should he really get another crack? No, he has put in his time. He's finished everyone. And I also heard him say he doesn't even go out there specifically to like, I have to finish a fight. He's just like, it just happens. Like he's like, I'd be happy to go to a decision. He was like, but I just finished, lads, which is very, very impressive and a scary thought.
Yeah, it's just showing the level of fight IQ that he has, where you don't necessarily have to push for a finish. I've spoken and I've witnessed fighters who go out there, maybe put too much pressure on the finish and it doesn't happen, whereas that Rhys is the kind of guy that let the finish come to him and he's done a damn good job at that as well. Joining him on the card over there in Paris is Caolan Loughran, the Don, making his UFC debut against Yanis Gamori. So he will be bringing his own hype over there as well, and I'm very excited to see how Caolan gets on. I spoke with him last week over on SevereMMA. He gave a great interview,
a magnificent interview, if I do say so myself. Ian, everyone should go appreciate
it. Yeah, thank you. I really love talking to Caolan because his energy is infectious and his mentality is unique in how he talks about his progress, the way he talks about fighting itself. And, he has given himself a great chance to go in there and ruffle up the bantamweight division inside the UFC. And it's a good matchup to kick us off, Quilcha, for Caolan. He spoke to me about it, that, he feels that he's more well-rounded. Yanis is more of a kind of a striker, and he feels that he'll be able to put pressure and implement his own game plan on him. But, we give out about matchmaking sometimes, and especially within the UFC in recent times. And, Rhys was a victim of it, where, you're kind of somewhat thrown to the wolves, and it's kind of refreshing in ways to see Rhys go in and get, a more logistical kind of a matchup, the same as Caolan here, to give yourself an opportunity to grow. Obviously, Caolan a little bit behind in Rhys in terms of experience and where he's at in his career, but very, very exciting times to see him. And I feel Caolan has all the ingredients, like I said, to create a stir within the UFC, Quilcha.
Yeah, sure. With the way he is on the mic, he could cause a real stir and get a few people talking. Not to mention, he's I imagine his old boss is probably eating his words quite a lot after that interview he had with you, Ian. If anyone wants to check that out, it's very good, very, very good bit. But look, the fight itself, it's a perfect step up, and it's kind of like that natural progression of step up in terms of the level of opponents that he was getting. It's probably on par, maybe that small bit of a step up to what he had in Dylan Hazan. You could argue Dylan Hazan could be on the similar level to what he's getting in Yanis, but it's a great fight for him to enter the UFC. He's not being thrown to the wolves whatsoever, and it's nice that they're not using Irish fighters as cannon fodders to get people eyes kind of glued to some of these fights. So nice, and he might get a good build up from here then.
Absolutely, yeah, I couldn't agree more, Caolan. And Andy, I'm sure you're just as excited to see Caolan in there as well.
Yeah, 100%. I'm buzzing. Like Caolan, I just think he's a total package. I really do. I think that, and you know what, the word that's kind of rolling, the phrase that's rolling out in my head at the moment is battle tested, which is kind of ironic considering all of the framing of Caolan Loughran's career early days was that he was not battle tested. But when you listen to him, talk about his training, I feel like he's just going through the meat grinder every single day at Team Caolan to get him ready. And I think that his skill set is well rounded. He has an unorthodox style, but it's a very fan friendly one, and it leads to finishes. And I think that his last few performances in Cage Wars has shown, not just on the training map, but actually when it matters, which is inside the cage on fight night, that he rises to the occasion, and that also he can do it against different styles, and he's not afraid to go in there when it comes to the jump up in competition level, from fighting guys who he had probably no business being in the cage with before Cage Wars, to then taking on guys with a few fights. It's unclear how just how good they are, and then going and taking on Luke Shanks, former champion, dusting him, and going on from there, taking on a tough guy in Dylan Hazan as well. He's been incredible, and he talks the talk, he walks the walk, and he's going to go in and ruffle feathers from day one. He's going to be a thorn in probably everyone's side in the UFC, and that's going to be incredibly entertaining for fans, for media, for everyone. He's going to provide sound bites, and ultimately, I believe in his skill set. I don't know where it will take him, but I'm very excited. He has that kind of healthy mix of a little bit unorthodox, where you're like, ooh, is there holes here? Like, could he get clipped here? While also consistently winning and showing that he's a force to be reckoned with. So I'm sure he'll have doubters along the way, but he's going to have a serious amount of support, I reckon, too, especially coming out of a County Tyrone, where they support their own very, very well up there. And I think we're in for a fun ride here in the UFC. And what a way to kick off with two Northern Irish fighters on the same card in France.
It's nice for Tyrone to have something to support after such a disappointing All-Ireland.
Oh, wow.
Shots fired there. Jesus. Shots fired from Caolan Navarro. Wow. My goodness.
We're trying to big up Caolan Loughran and Caolan.
I love it. Well, look at the surge in mixed martial arts up the north. Look, it brings us to our next kind of guy we'll talk about, and that's Paul Hughes. Who's calling for, you suggested it as well, Andy, that Sharia rematch at UFC Paris. I mean, I would be absolutely blown away if Paul Hughes isn't signed up for this Paris card as well. I'm absolutely blown away it hasn't happened already. He shared his thoughts on it, and he's telling everybody and his fans that be patient, that good things are coming. But beggars belief, Andy, really, that he hasn't been signed up already at this stage.
Yeah, to me, there's a few fighters who could really be signed up next. We could
name out a good few here. Like, I mean, most prominent one maybe Paul, Danny, Kiefer Crosby. The list could go on. Andreas Binder picked up a good win. I think,
but Paul is the one that people have been waiting on for a long. Like I think it's the consensus has been an expectation that Paul Hughes his next fight should be in the UFC, and I think that's still the case. And look, when you look at Paul specifically, we've gone over this time again, but it's the fights that he's had, it's the magnitude of the fights he's had. He's gone 5 rounds. Like, I feel like he's ticked every box that he needs to. And okay, look, the last few, there haven't been the finishes maybe that some people want, but I don't see that as important at all. I think I think it is a matter of time before he's in there. And yeah, like, I'd love to see the Sharia. Look, I don't know if the UFC care about stuff like that. I think it'd be a cool storyline for the European fans. I think obviously Morgan Charrier has a huge army supporting him, and it would be a no-brainer from that perspective to put him on a Paris card. And I also think that he's rebounded very well from his defeats. So I think to go in there and stick Paul Hughes in a matchup against him, they're both calling for it. There'd be big interest from the Europeans in that. And I think, look, do I think Paul would go in and win it again? I do, but I think it's still a challenge, and it would bring out the best in both of them and put on a very entertaining fight. But yeah, look, I think Paul is the front runner for to be next signed, but I also probably wouldn't have said that Caolan Loughran was the front runner or that Shauna Bannon was the front runner when they were signed. So it would not surprise me to see the likes of a Danny McCormick or a Kiefer Crosby or a Lee Hammond or whoever, and Andreas Binder signed up because there's interest in Ireland. And look, all of this is good, whether you're next, whether you're 2 away, 3 away. All of this is brilliant for the fighters and for Irish MMA as a whole.
Yeah, and look, Danny was calling out as well that she doesn't want to be forgotten about. Obviously, she's expecting a fight soon with Invicta. There has been no confirmation of when and who that would be, and obviously that's going to be her defending her title. But yeah, with the talks of a show coming to Dublin next year, that opens up the door for someone like Danny and maybe Kiefer as well. Like I said, we could name names here until the cows come home, and I don't want anyone to get upset for not naming names. Like the talent is out there. We've talked about it week in and week out. What brings us to our next topic, which is the overall kind of landscape for European mixed martial arts now. Obviously the biggest talking point recently has been the sale of Bellator. Some very vague rumors going around that the Dublin show may be the last one under the proper Bellator banner. Talks of the PFL coming in and maybe buying Bellator. Rumors that there's a couple of Bellator fighters showing up on UFC.com, which started the rumor mill the UFC might be purchasing them. But what we do know and what we can confirm is that Bellator are now in the process of transitioning over to the next step. And what may that hold for Irish fighters within Irish mixed martial arts right now? Because there's a fine stable of fighters that are competing under the Bellator banner. I think no matter what happens with Bellator, lads, right, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, they're looking at Ireland as a huge market that 2 sellout shows twice a year. It's probably the biggest market that they have in the company right now. It's selling out bigger than they are over in the States. And, they had a big show in Japan there as well. But, with the introduction of maybe more European shows from the UFC, we have PFL, we have Oktagon, we have KSW, while it's a talking point, it's not all too worried. The options are out there, even if the Bellator thing did fall out. But I would be very surprised if it did. What would be your opinions on the overall landscape, Andy, of what's going to happen over the next couple of years? Maybe as a focus with the Irish mixed martial artists and the European scene.
Yeah, I mean, I have opinions. It's difficult to have a fully formed opinion, I suppose, because of the uncertainty. I think it's very uncertain times, specifically, when we're talking about Bellator here. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if they're going to get bought or who they're going to get bought by, or if it'll be a merger. And then what's the aftermath of that look like? So will fighters be kept on? Will only, you hear rumors all the time that whoever is going to buy it and they're only going to keep champions, and nobody really knows what's going on right now is the reality of the situation. But for specifically for Irish fighters, which is all I care about on this topic right now, is what's going to happen. Like, there's so many fighters that were signed up, and look, it was great. It still is great. They've been getting paid handsomely, which is a good thing. They've been getting shows twice a year. They've been getting to fight in front of sold out 3 arena crowds with 10,000 fans cheering them on, and experiences that a lot of fighters will never get to have in their careers. But what happens if that all goes away? And where do these fighters go? And will they be kept on? And at the end of the day, like, it's kind of like fun and interesting to talk about the business of MMA and all this stuff, but the reality is, when you're in it, when you're the fighter yourself, that's your paycheck, and you've got a family potentially behind you, and you're wondering, I don't know what's going on. And that's the reality right now, is that some fighters, I would say most fighters, don't know what's going on. They don't know what their future looks like. So Bellator have scheduled shows up until Dublin, but what happens next? And if all of a sudden that's no longer an option, well, where do these fighters go? Is Cage Warriors, most of them are SPG fighters, and that's not an option. And now, from a money perspective, maybe they don't want to go there, but then you've a concentrated portion of fighters looking to go somewhere. And do I think that there's going to be no options? No, because I think the Irish market has always been very strong, and it will continue to be. And the fact that so many shows are looking to come here reaffirms that. But it just leaves a lot of uncertainty, and yeah, it's hard to know how it'll play out because we don't know what's going to happen yet. But
you're a business, lads. Like, I mean, if you're a business and you're in the interest of making money, like you're looking at somebody like or like Bellator, who have been bringing shows to Dublin and selling out and making waves there. You're unlikely, and I'd be very surprised if that was to stop altogether. But it is that level of uncertainty that you've talked about in knowing what your path is going to be. Look, as a fighter, you have multiple things that you have to balance on a daily basis, and uncertainty around this topic is not a nice thing to have to deal with. So be interesting. Maybe we'll get the chance to talk and see if any conversations have happened with any of the fighters that are currently on the roster. But it's not all doom and gloom, Caolan. Like we said, we have had, looking at it from an Irish perspective, a little bit of an influx of Irish fighters within the UFC, and we talked a little bit on our group, on our WhatsApp group as well, that maybe the UFC are looking to try and up their talent as well within Europe. Obviously, with the introduction of the Apex shows in the US, I felt that that's taken away from the European scene, where we're not seeing as many fight night shows on mainland Europe. But we've got, an influx of Irish stars. Obviously, they've been focusing a lot on the UK scene. We could look at bringing shows to Spain. Obviously, they're going to France as well. So, there may be other avenues as well. If Bellator doesn't work out with the UFC, obviously with PFL as well, we're doing a show in December. KSW, Oktagon, so even if the Bellator thing doesn't work out, it's not all doom and gloom, and it's actually, you're in probably a pretty good position overall to kind of maybe pick what path you want to go. And, I don't want to kind of mold this as in like, it's going to happen.
It's a very positive approach.
Yeah, we want to try and keep it as positive as possible, but it's a thing that's happening right now, and it definitely plays a big factor in Irish mixed martial arts when you have a lot of our Irish fighters that are fighting on these Bellator shows year in and year out.
Yeah, no, look, it's a good way of looking at it. Like, it's just a way of opening up other opportunities and other avenues for you to go down. Like, it might be a bit scary at the beginning of, we don't know what's happening. Are we going to get this show, that show? Is this fighter going to be signed to kept on in whatever the structure will be? I'm not sure whatever it will be, but it does allow them to go off and see, okay, what else is out there? What other potential promotions could you go to? And some of the focus might be to redirect to the UFC, and we could benefit even more then by getting a UFC in Dublin and seeing more Irish in the UFC. And hopefully that'd be the case if so be it. It's a tough one because we don't know what's going to happen, but I think the best way of looking at it is in that positive light, that it might open up a lot of opportunities for fighters, really.
Yeah, indeed. Interesting. We'll keep our ear to the ground on that, and it'll be interesting to see how it all materializes. And we want to see our Irish fighters fighting, and I'm sure we'll see that one way or another. But we shall move on, guys. Let's talk a little bit about Cage Warriors 157. Obviously, we'll talk about Taka Mhandu's fight with him in an interview in just a few moments. James Webb also fought on the card as well. Taka put in a great performance. Like I said, we'll discuss that in detail with him. But coming in on short notice, a lot of topic of the conversation that we'll hear, Andy, is a change in mentality from Taka, and it was great to see him go in here and get the win as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Look, his back is against the wall. He's kind of exchanging wins and losses the last little bit, and he needed this. I think for himself, he needed this, and I think from as you guys will hear in the conversation, it's the mental side that can be quite difficult on a fighter, and it's something that they need to overcome. And I think going in here, short notice, up a weight class, that takes balls. And Taka went in there and put on a masterclass performance, as far as I'm concerned.
It literally takes balls, because he almost lost it.
There's also a lot. You'll also hear me talking about Taka's balls a lot in this interview, which some of it is accidental and some of it's not. So, but yeah, look, brilliant performance from him, and it's great to see. And yeah, look, hopefully he can springboard off this win into a big fight in Dublin, perhaps.
Yeah, before we head over to that interview, we'll talk a little bit about James Webb, obviously an honorary Irishman now, training at Team KF for years. Went in there and was defeated with Mick Stanton, a crazy fight until the stoppage.
Banger of a fight.
Like, really good. Caolan, I'll go with you, because I feel that James was a little bit hard done by with the stoppage here. Look, obviously he was badly hurt, but like having had Mick Stanton in the position he had him in, Mick Stanton was allowed that time to kind of recover and bounce back a little bit. And I felt that, James could have been given maybe a little bit more of an opportunity from Mark Goddard on the night to kind of maybe find his bearings. Like he was moving and he was trying to defend himself and he was listening to Mark Goddard. And, I thought Mark stepped in maybe a little bit too soon. What do you think?
It's a tough one. You can look at it in both ways. Like you could also look at it in the sense that Mark was giving him those two, like he gave him the 2 warnings beforehand and he was still eating strikes. So like I wouldn't.
Sean's argument on the podcast is one that I kind of agreed with too, is whereas that when you're a referee and you're shouting instructions, whereas that, okay, you'll give a warning, but he was there shouting at him to move and do that. So was that kind of constructing his movements a little bit?
Is that not a warning though, no?
But it's like he's telling them to move, and then like you tell him to, you tell a fighter to do something, and then you have to give him an opportunity to do it, in my opinion. Okay, and maybe I'm way off on this. I just thought it'd be interesting to bring it up. No, I feel you give someone an opportunity to move, but with Goddard, it was like move, and then 1 second, and then move, and then the fight was over. I don't know. Andy, maybe you can be the voice of reason here.
I was actually, as you lads were talking there, I was like, let me go back and watch this real quick. So I stuck it on. I think there's arguments for both ways. Like I had zero issue with the stoppage looking at it for the first time. As I look back at it now, I can see the argument a bit. I guess the crux of it, he was moving, but he was continuing to just eat shots as he was moving. So like, which I guess then there's the argument of, well, he is trying to get out of there, and you have seen fighters who, like they're not really showing any sort of offense back, and they're continuing to take shots, but they're trying to to find that path towards getting back up. But yeah, look, I don't really feel that strongly one way or the other. I think that Mick Stanton did a brilliant job of weathering that early storm. I thought, James obviously had him hurt early. Yeah. He looked brilliant, and then it turned in a. And
not to take away anything from Mick's performance, it was excellent, and he did so well to bounce back. It was just, I don't know.
It's tough.
James Webb, is he going to get that opportunity again? And I just feel bad for him in that regards, where it's like, we have that gray area where is that what is intelligently defending yourself, but we've seen Goddard leave fights go. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't die on the hill of it being a bad stoppage, but I would have liked to maybe have a little bit more clarity in the finish, whereas that, he's still moving. He's somewhat trying to, what is intelligently defending yourself? It's listening to the referee's instructions on what he wants to do. And he was trying to move. There's no doubt about it that James Webb was badly hurt in that scenario, but he seemed to have somewhat a little bit of bearings about him, where he was aware enough to try and move and improve that position. But look, at these things happen, and we shall go on. Very unfortunate for James. It would have been nice to see him going back in there and to pick up that title. But Mick Stanton put on an excellent performance.
Really puts him in a tough spot though, like career wise, because you're like, well, where do you go from here? Is it up a weight class? Is it?
Yeah, and it's not the referee's job either. I have to say, it's not Mark Goddard's job to think about, this guy is late on in his career, will he get another opportunity? But Mark Goddard is talking ultimately is about the safety of the fighters, and at the end of the day, we probably much prefer to be here talking about a fight that was stopped too soon rather than a fight that was stopped too late. In reality,
1,000%.
So. Yeah. But anyway, let's move over. We'll send it over to Andy for that interview with Taka Mhandu. He's going to speak with us about his big win at Cage Warriors 157 against Grant Ogborn. It was great to catch up with the cat, and we'll send it over to Andy right now.
And now we're joined by Taka the Cat Mhandu, Team KF's finest, coming off a big win over Grant Ogborn, most recently on Cage Warriors 157 over in London. But Taka, we're celebrating an even bigger victory today because Dublin are the All-Ireland champions. These two boggers here beside me wouldn't know anything about that now.
Yep.
Hey, what are you talking about? I have a Kilkenny jersey on here. I mean, come on, we've won our fair share of All-Irelands. Obviously, this year wasn't.
Did Limerick not just win there?
Yeah, well, look, we have plenty to catch up on.
Were you watching the match, Taka?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of the match, but I ended up kind of snoozing off there because it was a late one last night. Watching the fights, getting home from cage conflict from Belfast, so it's a bit of a late one. So I ended up watching the first half and then conked out, and then woke up and seeing all over social media that we won. So I was happy enough knowing that we'd won, but I ended up fucking snoozing off myself.
Yeah, you woke up thinking you have to go talk to these three Egypts now.
Yeah. I woke up because in my head I was like, I want to be on the L triangle, so I'll wake up.
That's it. Well, they do say you come on the L triangle and you win your fights, and clearly you are the proof of that. Or well, you do it the opposite way. So we'll try to we'll take your credit or try to get the rub off you. Basically, that sounded very weird, right? We're gonna keep on just moving this along. Sounded okay, Andy. Cut that one later. Did you ever play Gaelic football when you were younger, Taka?
No, actually. So we in primary school, like because there's a place in the guard team around the Swords area used to come down and kind of like give each skill lessons and stuff like that. But like I never actually took the extra step and played guard for the actual clubs. I was more of a football man, even though I was fucking shy at it. My big long gangly legs couldn't run for the life of me. But yeah.
Fair enough. Well, look, your long gangly legs, as you've christened them, and your arms did a lot of great work. Just the other weekend there. Look, a brilliant performance, Taka, and a much needed one. You know, coming back off a loss. How happy were you to get the win? There was a lot of emotion outpoured in the cage there, so it looked like it was a sweet victory.
Yeah, you know, I felt like it all finally kind of clicked for me. Do you know what I mean? So like I felt like in Dublin, I felt like it was almost the moment took me away. You know, I felt like it wasn't really. I hadn't fought in a wall. I hadn't fought consistently in a good wall. And there's a lot kind of going on outside the actual fight itself. And then I was like, when I was walking out, I was trying to like almost mentally block that rather than just embracing it and kind of being like, right, this is just where I'm at now. So when London came around, like I was training for that fight camp for. Literally probably since just after Dublin. So I was anticipating, because Chris was like to us, be ready for Rome or London, so I was anticipating a fight coming up, but I wasn't sure. Do you know what I mean? Because it ended up coming up to like the last week before London, and then I was like, right, this is probably not going to happen. And so I never took my foot off the brake rat, and so like but in my brain I was like, all right, it's probably not going to happen. And on the Friday night, or Saturday morning, Friday night, like at about 1 o'clock, Chris just texted me being like, there's a fight there, do you want it? I was like, there's a bear shit in the woods, and then literally by that afternoon I had a contract sent over to me, and that was it.
Yeah, and I mean, like I feel like that's important to highlight. You know, a key aspect of this one was it was only 6 days notice and up a weight class as well. Is there any hesitation? You know, especially coming off a loss where one loss is not great, but back-to-back losses is even worse. So is there any hesitation in taking a fight like that?
See, like I feel like there's more for me to gain than there was for me to lose, Jack, on the way. So I was going in there with nothing to lose. I was like, I've had those scares, I've had those tests earlier in my career, and now it's just time to show people what I'm really made of, because I know what I'm capable of, and I felt like people had forgotten, and like I was like, I need to let people know. Let people remember exactly who I am. And I went out there and I was just like, fuck this. I'm not letting this fella take this away from me. So I felt like he had a lot more to lose than I did, but I had a lot more to gain from the situation. So like I feel like the fighting cage conflict, because I had lost, came back, fought in cage conflict, but I feel like that flew under the radar a little bit because it wasn't really up on a big show. So I felt like that was even in my own head, I was like, that doesn't even count. So like I didn't even count that as win. I was like, I need to get back in here, and I need to fucking put a stamp on it and let people remember exactly who I am. Because like not even like I hadn't had a consistent run at it in a while, so I wasn't used to being in the cage, wasn't used to the whole procedure. So by the time London came up, now I was like, right, I'm ready. I know this, I've seen this, I've felt this. This is just another day in the office, and it's just time to finally get the ball rolling the way I should have.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we spoke after the one up a cage conflict and then before the Dublin one, and you talked about, you know, maybe the mental side of things, that things just weren't really clicking, but that you felt really good going into Dublin to go in there. And obviously, you know, I thought you look quite good earlier on, but getting subs by Benoit Blanc, was that a difficult pill to swallow? Having, you know, it sounded like you were in good spirits and in a good mental state heading into that one.
Yeah, that was a hard one to kind of take, because I felt like I'd done everything right. I've been doing everything right for months leading up to the fight, and then just like, you know, like just to be honest with you, I felt like on the night I'd actually done a little bit too much at the back. So by the time I was walking out, felt like I had an adrenaline dump. I felt like my arms were just heavy. I was like, what the fuck's going on? I'd never felt that. So it was one of them things where I was just kind of like, when I was walking out, I was like, oh, fuck, I actually have to go and do this now. So kind of way, I wasn't really excited. I wasn't amped up because my adrenaline had been up and down so much. So by the time I was walking out, I was just like, all right, so this is just what I have to do now. But and then when I got in there, it was chaos as well. Like fucking the start to stoppage, and then fucking I never got going in there. Do you know what I mean? And then after the one in Dublin, I was like, right. After the one in Dublin, I was like, right. I know what works for me. Do you know, kind of way I was like, I know that way the way it led up, leading up to the fight months prior, everything was perfect. But my preparation on the night, in terms of like my warm up and stuff, just wasn't what I needed. So this one, I brought it back to what was working, because I was back in the routine of it. Do you know what I mean? And those are the little things that, when you're out of the cage for a while, you don't really think about, but you need to have like a good routine on the day and a good warm-up routine and something that works for you. I also want to do things that I felt like were going to work for me, but probably work for someone else. So by the time I was kind of getting in there, it just didn't feel right. So now, and over in London last week there, I was just like, I knew what my routine was. I knew what, like, my, not even a ritual, do you know what I mean? I just know, like, I just want, because I'm always late for training anyway, so I never get as good a warm as I should. So I just need like literally 5 minutes to hit the pads, move around a bit of technique, get me out there, and that's me good to go. So I think, like, just kind of going back to what I'd done in the training room in terms of the short workouts, rather than big long fucking screaming out the back, fucking trying to get myself amped up. Those are just nerves. So now the nerves are gone, because I know exactly what I need to do for myself.
You spoke, Taka, about your rededication to mixed martial arts before the Benoit Blanc fight. And, you know, obviously that's a tough pill to swallow when you're doing things right, like you said, and it doesn't work out. But by taking this Grand Dogborn fight on short notice, you know, it proves to yourself, proves to your team. And maybe you don't care about what anybody else thinks, but, you know, by being physically capable of taking a fight at short notice shows your dedication to mixed martial arts, and then going out there and performing like you did as well. It must have felt really good to kind of get that performance off your back.
Yeah, definitely. You know what I mean? And Joe, like, that's why, like, in between, like, in the whole fight, I showed no emotion. Even walking out, there's no sign of any emotion. Like, one of the commentators said I was very stoic, which is a happy one for me, because I'm a firm believer of the stoic philosophy, because it's just something that clicked with me. But yeah, just like, I didn't show any emotion. I didn't show any of those kind of doubts that I had, not in myself, not even in my ability, but just in my way of performing. And just knowing that, like, obviously I know Chris was nervous as well, but it didn't show it. But I think he's seen out the back that he's just like, this is the Taka that I remember. This is Taka that I know is going to be UFC world champion. This is the fella that I know I put all my promises into. So it was like, in between the whole fight, I just put that on the back burner. I had some things that were going on even before the fight, from the night before the weigh-in, that was just that could have just completely thrown me off my game. Do you know what I mean? So there was a lot of variables that were against me, and those variables, I felt like any time my back is against the wall, I feel like that's when I really perform, and that's when I really get the best out of myself, because I know that this is it. Do you know what I mean? And it's only uphill from there. So usually for me, rock bottoms, and it's never really an end point. So it was a starting off point. So I just use that as that thought of train as is. And, like, you know, funny enough, like, the entire fight week, I was, did you ever hear the David Goggins quote? Who's gonna carry the boats?
Yeah.
So that was my mantra for the week. So I was walking around screaming, who's gonna carry the boats? And then, fucking funny enough, Leon Edwards was walking out with O'Mill Brown. And this was just after I'd fought. And obviously, like, I was finally able to show off a little bit of emotion and scream and roaring. I was walking out the back, and then he was walking in. I was screaming, who's going to carry the fucking boats? And I was like, I'm going to carry the fucking boats. As he walked in, I looked him dead in the eye, and he was probably just like, what the fuck is this crazy? You know what I mean? And, like, I know he's like, Jesus Christ. But, like, I was just in the moment. I was just in the zone. I was just like, this is exactly where I belong. And, you know, all those people that doubted me, the people that were talking shit, the people that were fucking saying to me, oh, are you going to get a normal job now after I lose? And I was like, you don't know anything. You literally do not know anything. You don't know that if I stop doing what I'm doing, that's when I fail. That's when I lose. I know what exactly I'm capable of. I know exactly where I'm going. I'm still young. I'm still like, I've been through a lot in the sport for someone that's only been a pro for a couple of years. I mean, I've fought internationally. I've fought two of the biggest promotions in the world. I'm only 5 fights into my professional career. So these little tests, these little obstacles and adversity are going to stand by me for the rest of my career, because I know I've been there. I'm not comfortable with the feeling of losing, because I've never lost from my amateur career, and I don't want to I don't want to become familiar with those feelings. And I just knew that, like, when I stepped in there, I was like, I'm going to show people exactly what's up.
You're taking the fight at a higher weight class, and obviously at short notice that comes with a lot of risk as well, between power, size, all sorts. Did you feel that even going up to featherweight that you were comfortable, and was there any difference in power or anything that you could have learned from that as well?
No, nothing. To be honest with you, I'm basically a welterweight in a bantamweight's body. Like he cracked me some shots. It didn't even phase me. It didn't even, like, there's no power difference. There's no size. There's no strength difference there. I was actually hitting him the harder shot. So if you look at the fight, you just know I wasn't undersized, like it, but I'm still gonna go back to bantamweight. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm still gonna squeeze that as much advantage as I possibly can for as long as I can. But the size wasn't an advantage. I felt like to be honest with you, I didn't even actually do a bat leading up to on the night before. Or the morning off either. I didn't even do a bath. Didn't jump in the sauna. Woke up, was on weight. I think I had 6 kilos to cut from the Saturday when the fight was announced, and then I just water loaded, done some no carbs. I actually had a takeaway, because I do deliveries for Rubies and Swords. I don't know if you know it. I do deliveries for them, and then so on the night that the fight was announced, I was like, fuck it, this is gonna be my last supper before I start cutting weight properly. So like the making the weight wasn't a stress at all. So like that's how I know I'm able to go back down to bantamweight, because it's a little bit too easy. But in terms of like defining a disadvantage, when it comes to size, I'm never disadvantaged now.
Class. Taka, you mentioned Chris earlier on and the support that he's shown to you. He tweeted out after your fight saying that, you're finally showing what you're capable of. You tweeted that and said that, Chris had seen your potential since the day you walked into the gym, and that you've been a bit of a bollocks, but he was always there. Can you kind of go into that tweet a little bit? What was kind of going on there with that relationship, or why are you calling yourself a bollocks in that situation?
I'm just, I show a lot of promise and I show a lot of potential in a lot of different areas of my life, as well as fighting. But sometimes I just get distracted easy. Do you know what I mean? Like living when I just, especially back when I was younger. Do you know what I mean? Like, be going out with the lads, kind of getting pulled away from the sport. I'm not taking it as seriously or as disciplined as I should. And then Chris would be fucking giving out to me, being like, "Oh yeah, look, what the fuck, and blah blah blah." Just, it's a job now. Do you know what I mean? I'm not an amateur anymore. This is my job. Do you know what I mean? So if I'm fucking up in my job in any other place, I'm gonna get sacked. So there's been times where it's just like, here, like, what do you want to be here? Do you want to be doing this? And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, what do I actually want out of sport? Do you know what I mean? But I had a serious chat with him there. When was it? I think it was like last September. And I think that's when the things kind of finally took a turn for the better, in terms of like just being more organized and being more disciplined in my art and in my job as well. So like all the bollocks that was happening outside the gym, just kind of fucking, I didn't even get myself in trouble, but just fucking getting distracted, trying to go out with my friends and then go to train at the same time, and balancing a life that wasn't the life of a professional athlete. So that's kind of what it meant. And I think he's seen that promise from me in a long time. And then I felt like he'd finally seen that leading up to the Dublin card, and then I lost, and I was just like, for fuck's sake, I was this close, close to fucking putting it all together. And then, this fight materialized. I feel like he was I felt like he knew I could beat this guy, and he made my decision. Do you know what I mean? He wasn't like to me. He's like to me, I want you to take this fight because you want it. I don't want you to take this fight because of me. And then, I was sitting there myself, and I was just like, he sent me a video of the fella. I was like, I can beat the shit out of this guy. I didn't even think about it. I was looking at it straight away. In my mindset, I was like, I'm going to beat the shit out of this guy. And then when I sent him that message on WhatsApp, and he's like, right, that fight's done. I was like, right, let's go. Like, I don't have time to doubt myself anymore, because I know my potential. I know the work that I put in. I know the lads that I train with. I know everything is just there teed up for me. All I have to do is grab it by both hands, and that's what I'm going to do now.
Absolutely. Sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, Taka, to, without being disrespectful to Rand Ogborn, you said about beating the fuck out of this guy. If anyone saw the photo of his face the next day, it was clear to anyone to see the damage that you did. Going into, you talked about kind of stoicism there, but it really looked like a composed performance. Obviously, Mark Goddard ended up standing in, or sorry, it might have been Danny Mudd, I can't remember which ref it was, but stepped in to wave off the action, and I'd seen that he had enough. To go in there and be patient and not kind of hunt for the finish, but still it came due to the sheer amount of damage that you did. Is that kind of how do you come away from a fight like that? Does that feel better than like maybe like an emphatic finish or what do you think?
No, absolutely. I feel like that performance is exactly the performance that I needed to put on. Like, Joe, I didn't want to go in there and like finish him like one round. I wanted, like, this was a 3-round beating, and he took me down. I was able to get back up and then defend. I was a takedown, so I showed every aspect of my game. So people that are thinking that like I couldn't grapple, or people thinking that he can only do one thing. I can do one thing really, really well, but I can also grapple. I can also do other things. I'm the one that engaged the clinch, beat him up in the clinch positions, and like I basically won. I did win every round of that fight. I won every minute of that fight, and like it was one of the performances where like you look at it and be like, it's going to be hard for me to beat this guy. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like after Dublin, there was a lot of people were like, it would have been easier for people to be like, oh yeah, I want to fight this guy. But after a performance like that, just continuously beating on some fella, jabbing the head off him, hitting right hands for the entire fight. And anytime he got close in, no disrespect to him, he's a good opponent, he's a good fighter. But like that's what I was saying. Like I know I'm levels above. I know I should be way ahead in my career right now. So like I just knew that was the performance that I needed to have, and everything just worked out perfectly for me. And funny enough, there was a quote that I put up on the post there recently enough, is like, you do not have control of the things that go on outside, but you have control of the things that you have power of, and that's where you can find the strength. And the only thing I was focusing on is keeping control of the things that I can keep control of. And like I need to keep my composure, I needed to keep calm, I needed to just not let my mind fucking like overcommit to things that I do need to overcommit to. Like my game plan in every fight is quite simple: stay long, hit them with the jab, and hit them with the right hand. Like me and Chris call it being long and luscious, and that's what I was doing all night long. You know what I mean? It's just it's a tried and tested method of my career. You know what I mean? Like the only time I've lost is when I kind of strayed away from that. So from now on, like everyone knows what to expect. Like, but do you know what? I have a little journal that I have for my training. I actually wrote that I was going to submit him. So I was actually in my head. I was thinking going in there like wanting to submit him just to prove a point. But do you know, when something's working, why stop doing it? Do you know what I mean? If it's not broke, don't fix it. So I end up just trying to break his face instead of taking his neck.
Taka, you've mentioned the stoicism, and then you mentioned the journal there you have for training. I guess with the likes of the meditations by Marcus Aurelius and then the journal on top of that, how important are these factors for you in kind of your day-to-day life and keeping grounded when you are training and pursuing a certain goal?
It makes my understanding of my goals a lot easier to understand. Do you know what I mean? I just know that I have to do certain things at certain times to reach where I want to be. So rather than looking at the end goal, rather than looking at the outcome or like the result of whatever's going to come, I'm focusing more on the day-to-day efforts that I put in between my training, between my journaling, between my own mental kind of like fortitude in terms of like reading and kind of feeding my mind the right things, rather than kind of like falling victim to like complacency and stuff like that. So it's been playing a big factor in my approach in terms of like the mental side of it. So like I've actually I have a sports psychologist as well, so I've been working with him and working with another psychologist as well, just trying to mediate both sides of myself and kind of get the athlete more acquainted with the person that I am. Do you know what I mean? So it's more, I'm finding the physical aspects of it are a lot easier to handle when the mental side of things are in tune with each other.
And it's a lot of things that people, I guess, won't see from the outside perspective in fighting, is how important that mental aspect is and getting that down to T, because it's all good being, I guess, the physical side, but not without having the mental side in check as well, or having that completely focused. You can't perform to your very best. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the two things go in unison. Do you know what I mean? Like the fighters at the top of the divisions, at the top of the world, you know, or not even athlete, or not even fighter. Sorry, any athlete at the top of his game needs to have that mental side in check. And if you look at the guys that are at the top of their sports, they perform continuously and consistently in every single scenario. So I know they're working behind the scenes doing that every single day, but people only see them, let's say, on the basketball court or on like the football pitch working and constantly grinding. But I know to reach that certain level of like, there was 0.01% of athletes, the mental side of it is just as important as the physical side, and you can reach the top without really kind of having those two things put together and working as one, as a well-steamed engine.
You spoke, Taka, about having, you know, conversations about what you really want from mixed martial arts. Like, what was the result of those conversations? What do you want from mixed martial arts?
Yeah, like I was asking myself those questions, you know what I mean? And like I feel like you have to ask yourself objectively and critically, what do you want out of the things that you're doing? And like when I was asking myself the questions, when I was kind of in limbo about everything, when I lost the why of my intrinsic motivator for the sport, my motivator now is that I know how good I am, and I know that the skills that I possess can take me to the top of the sport. All I have to do is just focus on doing the day-to-day things right, and everything else will fall into place. And that's what I've been doing. Do you know what I mean? Every time something goes wrong, even after my last fight there, like I was sitting with the psychologist, and I was like, I was afraid to feel the fear of losing again. Do you know what I mean? So when you push that fear back, and when you fight against it, it grows in a different way. And I felt like for Dublin, I was trying to like suppress it, and I was trying to push it away, but then I ended up kind of like doing things that I wouldn't have done on fight day, like, you know, like an extended warm or get myself too hyped up, instead of just being like, most of the times I'm usually nearly falling asleep out the back, yawning and stuff like that. So I knew that was just my fear manifesting in a different form. So for me to really be able to kind of like put that kind of acknowledgement and just face all those little things, and kind of face the doubt, face the noise, or block the noise out of everyone else around me, and kind of really zone in on what I need for myself, was probably the best thing that I could have done. And like doing it this early in my career, you know, it's gonna stand by me, and I feel like just gonna go strength to strength. Like for the next Dublin card now, like I'm looking forward to getting back in there and just putting on the performance for the people that came out to support me the last time. I'm showing them, like, this is why you paid the money to come see me. This is why you paid, let's say, 6 hours of your life's work to come see me now. So that's the only thing in my mind.
Not that you need to prove anything, or not that you care about it, but I think you proved that mental strength by taking this fight at short notice as well. Given, you know, you're coming off a loss as well, there is a lot of risk there as well. So I mean, you know, getting that and making those decisions and getting those results obviously builds that confidence as well, that you are going in the right direction. You mentioned Cage Warriors Dublin. That's the next step for you.
Yeah.
Will it be featherweight? Will it be back down bantamweight? What are you thinking? What would you like to happen at this? And I'm sure that you're very eager to go back, perform in Dublin, and get that win as well.
Definitely, yeah. So I'll be definitely going back to bantamweight. Yeah, so bantamweight is my weight division. So I'll be going back down to bantamweight, and making a run for the bantamweight belt. Yeah, and I see there's a few guys in the division that are really good. So like, you know, I want to test my skills against the best of the best, and I've been doing that since early on in my career. You know what I mean? I've never gotten an easy fight. I've always been pushing to fight the best guys. Chris has been pushing me to fight the best guys. Sometimes I come short because I feel like it's not even, like, obviously I'm the night better than me, but I feel like I know I'm better than these guys. You know what I mean? Even the lads I've lost to, like, it keeps me up at night. It still keeps me up at night, even though I'm past out the two losses, and now I'm like, I could beat that guy. Do you know what I mean? I know I can, but I just done some mistakes leading up to it, or on the day, or even in the fight, that I'm just like, why did I do that? Do you know what I mean? The knee that I threw in Dublin, I was like, what the fuck was I doing? That was just literally me not being, that was my mind and my body not working in not working in unison. And like I know for Dublin now, it's just, I'm looking forward to kind of getting back in there and just having the right stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it was people in NASA back in the day used to say, like, to have the lads with the right stuff, and I feel like I have the right stuff now. And like, I just want to go in there. I want to go back to bantamweight, and like, cause featherweight, it's too easy. Do you know what I mean? I've put on a lot of muscle mass and stuff like that, but I can make that a little bit too easy. And Chris always loves making us suffer just a little bit. So I want to have to go wait, and and prove. I mean, not prove anything to anyone. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I have a bad habit of wanting to prove things to people, but I have nothing to prove to anyone because then I have everything to prove to myself. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what pushes me. That's my intrinsic motivators is proving to myself that I know how good I am. I know I'm capable of, and I just being able to display that kind of the confidence and the skill that I know I have to everybody else.
Taka, you in the post that you put up after the win, you mentioned that there was unexpected news the night before the weigh-in. Do you mind kind of revealing what that was, or if I'm overstepping my boundaries here, if in case it's private?
It was something a little bit private. You know, it was there's some stuff going on in my private life that kind of ended up blowing up my face the night before the fight, and it's the night before the weigh-in. So I was in the middle of dealing with that on the night. So the night before the weigh-in, I couldn't even sleep. Do you know what I mean? That's the only thing I could think about. I was lying in bed, and I just seen the clock just ticking further and further away. I was like, shit, it's 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock, and it's 5 o'clock at night. Still haven't slept. And you know when you have something on your mind, like you're like, oh, I'm not gonna think about it. I'm not gonna think about it. And then, but you saying that, you're just thinking about it. So, but when I woke up, then I feel like I was burning calories thinking. So I feel like it was probably happening at the right time because I feel like that's really why I woke up on weight, because I was burning so many calories overthinking the situation. But at the end of the day, like we're saying about the stoic philosophy, you focus on the things that are in your control rather than focus on outside influences that don't have a direct impact to what you're doing at the moment. So like I was actually reading a chapter in my book. It's called The Obstacles the Way, but we're on holiday. So we literally just talked about channeling your energy and like putting your energy into the right spaces in your mind. So when that was happening, I was just like, right, I'm gonna just not even bottle it up. I'm gonna compartmentalize this, use all of that energy, and focus it on the task that I have at hand. And the task that I had at hand was Grant Ogborn.
We've talked a lot about, kind of the philosophy, that the mind, really, everything kind of comes back to the mind. And I remember you said to me that, you were kind of like fighting for your dad, and you had to kind of do a lot of soul searching to understand why it is that you do this. Am I accurate in saying that almost your biggest obstacle is your mind when it comes to fighting?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that is definitely the biggest obstacle that I have. I am my own worst enemy sometimes, and I feel like that's something I'm finally kind of getting past, and something that I'm moving past now, because I'm understanding myself a lot more, with the therapy and like the sports psychology and shit. I feel like I'm understanding my own mind more, and I feel like it was one of the biggest steps I could have taken in the right direction to really kind of bring myself into the next chapter of my life as an athlete and as a person. So just kind of really focusing on the internal made everything external kind of a lot easier to handle, and it just made it really enough. It just made everything fall into place. Everything just fell into place. Yeah,
and look, it's great to hear that you're in a good spot with it, and clearly dealing with it on a daily basis, which is brilliant. One last thing before you go, Leon Hill put on a phenomenal performance there this weekend over in Italy. Things really seem to be clicking. I feel like he's one of kind of like the underrated stories of the past year in Irish MMA. 6 finishes in a row, and now he's doing it on a European stage. How good is it for you to see your teammate going out there and performing so impressively?
Man, I'm so happy for Leon. I swear to God, he's like my brother. So I remember after my Cage Warriors title fight in the Devonish, Leon came up to me and then he texted me saying, "Oh, you want to come to the gym?" Blah blah blah. Because me and him had some mutual acquaintances and whatnot. And then he came down to the gym, just seeing where his career has gone now is it's amazing, Joe. He's an inspiration to everyone in the gym. He's an absolute grafter, and just seeing him get exactly what he deserves, just through hard work, sacrifice, and discipline. It's motivating to everybody on the team. It's good to see, and I feel like he does fly under the radar quite a bit. But I feel like after that win there, he's going to be getting the recognition that he deserves, because the fella is an absolute grafter, number one, and he's an absolute animal. And like this is just, and it's one of them things where like this is the wave of the lads. So we're all pushing each other on to be in the UFC. And like seeing the big wins that are coming from Cage Warriors, seeing the lads coming through like Leon, and they're going to be seeing Dom and stuff coming through in the next while, and a few of the other lads. You just look at it and be like, this is a different group of lads. Like I feel like the last time people seen a group of lads like this would have been when Connor, Chris, Caolan, and them likes were coming up. I feel like we're just a different breed, and just kind of seeing the success of everyone around me really kind of pushes you on to kind of keep pushing on and keep working hard. And yeah, I'm delighted for Leon. Do you know what I mean? Everything's fallen into place for him. Everything's clicked, and it's literally inspiring.
It's kind of infectious, the kind of environment and the brotherhood that you've created there at Team KF. Like, you can really see it with Tom, especially in Leon's fight yesterday. You could see it with Tom and Chris, how delighted they were to get the win, as they are when you get the win, and you can see how devastated they are as well when you guys don't get the win. You know, it's they're really living and breathing, and it's like, it's so good to look at, and it's an important factor in having a good core and a good relationship in a gym, and striving to build upon that success with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you know, like the saying that we have is like, it's like it comes from the top down. Do you know what I mean? The lads are constantly leading from the front. They're going into battle, like, you know, like they've been where we are. Do you know what I mean? They've lived the life that we have. So like, they've really cultivated an atmosphere where it's like Chris is always looking to be Chris is always looking at like other coaches and like the best coaches in the world, and in football, in whatever it is, and seeing what works and kind of really learning off them so he can give us the best coaching that we possibly can. So like him being so dedicated to becoming a better coach and a more mindful coach, and like it trickles down on us. You know what I mean? Like, you can see the results that we have. You can see the camaraderie that we all have with each other, and that comes from Chris cultivating that, from like just knowing that this is how champions are made. This is how you get a group of lads into the same room that all have the same dream, and how to kind of get the best out of each and every single one of them. So like, our team's not massive, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not easy for you to come into our team, because like, not because it's like oh, we're a little clique or whatever. Everyone's allowed into the clique, but it's just keeping up with us, you know what I mean? Because we're very singularly minded towards the ultimate goal of success. So if you can't keep up with the hard work that we put in, you fall through the cracks, in a kind of way. So Leon was one of the people, when he came, he just put the work in, and that's why he's getting the results now. And it's literally that simple. And like, we all just push each other to become better. Do you know what I mean? It's not, when one of us wins, we all win, and it's just constantly just like, and it's one person after another person after another person. You're looking at the gym, you're just like, I'm grateful to be here. Do you know what I mean? This is the place where I need to be to get to where I want to be, do you know, kind of way. And even with like things that happened years ago, kind of people moving away or kind of just getting shifted away, it was for the betterment of the team, and everything works towards the betterment of the team. And like, that's why the gym, and that's why you see Chris being so happy for us and Tom, like, just because we have to be a unit together. Do you know what I mean? It's not one person or another person. It's all of us together.
Absolutely, and look, it's great to see, and I know you'll see Chris in celebration with you when you win, but I also know that there's the nerves, and he's nauseous and everything behind the scenes as he's walking out. He's probably more anxious than the fighter themselves that's about to get in the cage. One more before you go, and I apologize, Taka, for not asking this earlier in the interview, because it was very rude of me. But how are your balls feeling?
Mate, I'm not even joking. I'm actually still in pain. It's actually pretty bad. Well, it's bad enough, yeah. Like, I swear to God, I think
you took 4 punts to the nuts.
I think it was like the third one, maybe, is that where it's like a proper smack, and then like, I didn't. Do you know, in my head, I was like, I was questioning myself. I was like, did that actually hit me? And then I was like, why am I going down? I was like, but then like, do you know, because I just didn't want to. Just wanted to keep the action going. So I was like, in my head, I was like, no, I'm all right. And then, you know, I was kneeling down on the ground. I was like, no, I actually am in pain. But like, and then, you know, I was like, the crowd, like, obviously they have the big screens or whatever, and they replay it, and the crowd, and all I hear was like everyone being like, ooh. I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, no, this was bad. I'm not just being a little bitch. This probably was bad. And then I looked at the video back then, because some page on Instagram called Combat Nuts, who, weirdly enough, it's just a page dedicated to like the best nut shots in MMA or.
No way.
Yeah, they ended up.
So you featured.
I featured, unfortunately, but I watched back on it, and then the one that dropped me was like a proper. It sounded like somebody hitting a hurl off a tree. Charlie, it was that bad. So I was just like, what the fuck? But I was like, nah. At the minute, I'm still in pain, but you know, I've been icing them, keeping them. You know, they've grown twice, so it's actually not too bad.
Chris says just have a guy for that anyway. There's a dedicated ball guy in the club.
Like, so he comes into us and just fondles our balls for a little bit. And it's not weird. It's not weird because it's his job.
Well, what a way to end the interview. I think that's where we leave it. But but Taka, look, I really appreciate the time today. Congratulations on a brilliant win. And I imagine, look, Cage Warriors Dublin coming up here now in just less than 3 months. I assume that's the is that the goal? That's the next step in your career. Is that what you're eyeing up for you and for I suppose for the rest of the team?
Yeah, so there's definitely gonna be a few of us in that card anyway. But I know. Actually, no, I'm not even going to say it.
Almost.
Go on, say it.
I almost said it, but there's a few works.
You're earmarked for the card, are you?
Yeah, definitely earmarked for the card. I was talking to Ian, so I'm definitely earmarked for that card. I'll probably have a fight now, a contract sent to me in the next week or two. And then I'm going to look to hopefully get something else before the year's out after that. So I know they're doing London on November 11th, and then they're doing Newcastle November 25th. So between one of them 2 cards, I'll look to jump back in again. So it's just, like I was saying, I lost a lot of time just kind of not being around or dropping the ball myself outside training. So I'm just going to try and make up for that lost time and kind of get myself in the right position to be in the UFC in the next year and a half maybe.
Brilliant. Well, look, it's great to see you succeed, and it's great to see you in good spirits as well. And hopefully we see a string of activity from you now with success in the next number of months and on into next year. Taka, the Cat Mhandu, Team KF's finest, appreciate you joining the show today, and we'll have you on again soon.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me, lads. Appreciate it.
All right, moving on with some other news. Ger Harris went over to APFC, Anthony Pettis' show over in Richmond, Virginia, and picked up a really good armbar win over Cody Matthews, who, had Ger in a little bit of trouble at the start, asking a couple of questions as well. A really, really kind of good test for Ger Harris coming over there, but got taken down and threw up an armbar beautifully, Caolan, and it was over before it started, really, once it got down to the mat as well. Really impressive from Ger Harris.
Yeah, savage. He, I think, showing the signings and the kind of what we always expected from Ger Harris and those type of performances, and he was throwing up those high performance moves. Really enjoyed those as well. So fair play. I really enjoyed watching it, and I think he wants to get on that. Is that Manchester card that they're going to put on it? Is it Manchester?
Yeah, I believe that's what he called out after the fight. I
think he was calling. They have another one in the States in September. I think that's what the one he was calling out.
Was it?
Yeah.
I was almost certain. Well, either which way, I thought it was the October card in Manchester. But whatever, it'd be great to see him back there. It seems like a really good organization and a good platform there. He had Anthony Pettis looking at the fight on cage side with Sergio Pettis. And it's great that they're wanting to come over there. Like, I mean, talking about opportunities for Irish fighters to fight on cards. Well, here's Anthony Pettis' show coming over to Manchester. Obviously, Oktagon have announced the show in Manchester as well. And, those are other avenues as well, which is great to see. Big win for Ger, Andy, after that disappointing defeat from Florian Stan, obviously, which came earlier on this year. He bounced back well in this fight.
Yeah, look, I'm sure it's one that probably, again, we're talking about with Taka, like Ger probably needed this for himself, where he's taken a loss, he's switched gyms, he's now training under Andy Ryan in Team Rhino and new management as well. I believe it's Anthony Pettis' management company that are representing him now. So big changes in Ger Harris's career, and the pressure is probably on with this one. So he went out there, first time fighting in the US, weathered a bit of an early storm, though I thought he looked great on the feet. I thought he landed some nice leg kicks. Obviously got taken down, but then as soon as the opportunity arose, he locked up that armbar off his back, and back in the win column, and onwards and upwards from here for the GTA selector.
Absolutely, got plenty of questions as well about that nickname on Twitter as well. It was fun trying to explain that as well. We shall move on. We'll talk a little bit about Armand Herczeg. He made his pro debut at Oktagon this weekend. Fight didn't go his way. Stylistic clashes. It was a clash of styles, Caolan, I guess is the proper terminology, with Armand, who was pushing for the takedown. Look at the pull guard, and it didn't get the result. Was lost by a split decision. But I think a big talking point in this one that we were all discussing was his opponent, who threw a headbutt in the second round, a clearly intentional headbutt, where Armand lost the position and his opponent didn't get a point taken there, which was very surprising. So you're at a double disadvantage there when you lose the position and also your opponent doesn't get that point taken. That point taken would have resulted in a split draw on the 3 judges' scorecard. So, it'll be a little bit disappointing, and I'm sure he'll be feeling a little bit hard done by watching that fight back.
Yeah, it was mad, and it wasn't like one of those Sylvester Miller headbutts where there's a bit of kind of, I don't know, it wasn't one that it just looked intentional. It was, I don't know, it didn't make any sense. And to make it worse, is actually he was in Armand's guard, and Armand would have been looking to kind of utilize his grappling a lot more in that, but it meant he got stood up where your man was looking to have the fight, so he would have been striking, and it kind of worked to his advantage in a bit of a double hit to Armand there. But he was saying he's no excuses from the fight. He doesn't believe he was fit enough for it. He did take it on short notice as well, but it was a very good clash of styles. An interesting fight to watch, I think, is what we were saying when we were watching it. Really interesting to watch. Your man just wanted to box, while Armand was mixing it up a little bit. Maybe didn't get the kicks off as he would have liked, but it was still a positive showing, and I'd say there's plenty to take from it, to kind of take back, learn from, and then go back and hopefully compete again in Oktagon, which I think he expects to.
Yeah, absolutely. Really fantastic setting over there. We've said that time and time again for Oktagon shows as well. And
cool spot to make your debut, isn't it?
Not too bad, not too shabby at all now, in fairness. It's
they had a halftime show and everything.
Really, I didn't catch the whole card now, but no, nice opportunity.
The only thing I'd add, I suppose, the significance of that is Armand's the first of this Team Ireland that we've kind of publicly seen competing under the Oktagon banner.
It's kind of strange that they're having him compete and then the thing isn't happening until September. Yeah. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'll be keeping a keen eye on that for sure. But maybe I'll stick with you, Andy, because just yesterday or this past weekend, Leon Hill went in there and produced another fantastic showing when he went in there and defeated Jerleon by first round rear naked choke. And we'd had talked to Taka about it in the interview a little bit as well, but we were all massively impressed with Leon, and especially what he's done over the last year as well. Obviously, after coming through a hard time after getting concussed, this was he's putting himself right in line for emerging prospect of the year for SevereMMA with what he's been able to do this year so far, Andy.
It's a good shout. I hadn't even thought about that. It's a great shout, Ian. Look, really impressed with Leon Hill, the professional, and it was a professional performance here from him, the Team KF man. So he when I spoke to him before, Andy was saying second round finish. It only took him. He's actually said second round TKO, but it only took him around, and it was a sub. And what he didn't say on camera, because he probably didn't want to give much away, but immediately after, he kind of said, "I'm going to take him down, get him out, and finish him from there." And it's not really how it played out, but he got the back. He took him down. He flattened him out and got the choke from there. And I thought that, I guess what impressed me most was, you're going in against a guy who's coming off a big win over Adam Cullen, another highly touted prospect. And he was under a bit of pressure early. I thought that Jerleon started well, and that he put the pressure on the grappling early, but Leon just seemed really composed throughout, and he kind of just was very sequential in his next step at every point in the fight, and I really didn't take much damage at all. Even though there was pressure coming his way, he handled it with ease from what I saw. Got in, got out, got a finish in the first round, and on to the next one. And there's a lot of uncertainty with obviously George Hardwick's title being gone. I don't know if Leon is quite there for a title shot yet. I think if you're him, you could call for it. There's nothing stopping you calling for it. But I think it's a big fight that'll, I could potentially see him going in here in Dublin now, a big fight, and then you could be fighting for a title after that. So
one, maybe two, and then a title. I mean, you looking, Mason Jones got a good win on the same card as well. Are they going to prime him up for a title fight against somebody?
You forget Mason Jones.
That's the thing, and it's like, oh, all right, that would be a fantastic fight, but I would like to see Leon get maybe one or two more and build up that level of experience inside the Cage Warriors cage and then push for it. But like Quilcha, we spoke about his performance on Saturday night, and Andy mentioned it as well, the calmness and the composure, especially when things didn't go exactly his way at the start of the fight as well, to just remain calm, remain composed, and then push on to get the finish. It was really good from Leon.
Yeah, I was really impressed with that, because he was in a bit of a tough spot at one point there, but he managed to kind of come back, take control of the fight. Then kept composed, implemented his game plan in that first round, and just took over. It was really good. The calmness I noticed from him in that, and it was really good. It was a really good performance, and probably lines him up for that's 6 finishes for him now, and probably lines up for maybe as you were saying, a big fight next, maybe number 1 contender. Would we be talking that way?
I want that Pagani fight. Do you know what?
I was going to bring you in to say that, Andy. It was like that's an excellent call, because both lads are on the same time kind of schedule now, really, of having fought on the same card. And my goodness, like after seeing his performance as well, oh man, I'd love to see Leon go in against Begley.
You can position Leon Hill, right, as you know the way you hear like the prospect killer. Well, Leon Hill could be the prospect killer. So you have he's gone in. Shirlene took out Adam Cullen. You send in Leon Hill, he beats Shirlene. You had James Power fighting on this card, who a lot of us, I still do rate him highly, but he took the loss to Pagani. So now send in Leon Hill, see if he can take out Pagani. So I don't know. I think that makes sense. Pagani's 7-0. I think it'd be a step too soon. Not that Leon couldn't handle it, but I think it'd be a bit reckless to throw him in with the likes of a Mason Jones immediately. And I think let him cook for a bit. Let him get a big fight. Another big performance in Dublin. And it's no easy task going in against Pagani. But then, step by step, maybe you do Mason Jones versus an Aggie Sardari or something like that for the title, and then line up the next challenger from there.
Absolutely, it's kind of I would kind of have the same level of thinking there. Is that maybe line up Mason Jones at 1 or 2, let the rest of the division sort itself out a little bit, and we'll see what happens. So it definitely is going to be a big fight for Leon in Dublin, and we're looking forward to seeing both him and Taka. Obviously, after speaking with them, looks like they'll be on the show there as well. Quilcha, before we go over to our interview with Dee Begley, let's talk a little bit about Premier FC 7. Event went down last weekend on the same night as UFC London. On the 22nd of July. Couple of good performances throughout the card. I mean, Darragh Ward, Matthew O'Rourke picked up some good wins at the top of the card. Dan O'Sullivan, like you said, put on one of the performances of his career so far to date. We had Owen McDonald in the very first fight that put on a tremendous performance as well. Just take us through that card and some of the standout performances in your eyes, Quilcha.
Yeah, the main event was very tense. I think there was a lot of build up to it. Dave Farrell, he had a bit of back and forth between Brian and Darragh, and it was going on all week in the build up. So I was hyped for that fight, and it delivered. I think Darragh did really well, and I think he even kept going after the fight, I'm pretty sure, when they were reading out the decision. So great performance from him, and he adds another win. He's kind of on a good run at the moment. Then I feel like Dan O'Sullivan put on one of his best performances today. I was really impressed by him. He's leveling up time after time now. And I think CMAC had a debutant as well. And Rory Murphy, lovely bit of grappling from him. I think was the only submission on the card. He was threatening with a leg. Last position ended up with his opponent O'Neill in his guard. No relation to Ian O'Neill. And then he caught the arm, got the tap. That was it. And it was a good win for CMAC there. But definitely worth a mention for Owen McDonald as well. He's had a lot of people talking. That is one hell of a debut to make for him. And he's one of the standouts there. So good card. Premier delivering as always. The big cage has been the talking point there, and it's a great promotion, I must admit.
Is that 2 cards in a row where the 2 Honey Badger MMA lads, Darragh Ward and Dale Sheridan, getting big wins as well?
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, they're on a nice little run for the gym as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Like Dale Sheridan moving to 5-1 as well. He picked up a good win over Jared Ryan. Kevin Keogh picked up a good win over Aidan Fagan as well. Decent card. Good to see the Premier boys. Obviously, we've had Niall on here before, so always putting on some good cards, and I'm looking forward to the next one already. We shall hold off on Cage Conflict, which went down yesterday. What we will do is we will introduce Dee Begley, who has signed up with Invicta FC. That news broke last week, so it was the perfect opportunity for her to come on to talk about that and what her future plans are within that promotion as well. Very exciting move for her. I think it's the correct move for her as well. She'll have plenty of chance to flourish within Invicta FC. Obviously, she joins her teammates Danny McCormick and Katie Saul with in the organization. So I'm going to send it over to myself to get that interview kicked off. Welcome to the Auld Triangle, Dee Begley. It's great to have you on. How are you doing today? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Yeah, no, delighted to come on with you. All is good my end. Some exciting news. So
yeah, obviously the news broke last week that you were signed up to Invicta. You've made the move over from Combate Global to Invicta. Congratulations, number one, and number two. How excited are you for that news, and how did it come to be?
Yeah, so I'm really, really excited about it. I think it's the perfect platform for me where I'm at in my career right now. And I know, did you see, but there's a nice vacant flyweight belt there that would feel right at home in SPG Ireland. So I have my eyes on that. But it kind of came to be honest. So there was a show, Invicta had a show last March, and they had a dropout last minute. So the matchmaker messaged me, just saying, it was for bantamweight, just asking, look, are you under contract? Would you be interested in this short notice fight? I had a fight lined up with Combate at the time for April. So I said, look, I can't do it this time, but if you have something in the future, another dropout, like I'll take it. And we kind of had a quick discussion about my contract. I was fighting the last fight on my Combate contract. And he was like, look, let's see how that goes. And, we'll talk after your fight. And then I got a lovely finish in the first round. So, it all lined up perfectly. So I signed a multi-fight contract then with Invicta. That was good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so Hannah, that's what was my next question about, just the transition over from Combate. So Hannah Guy, the last fight that you had, that was the last kind of fight on your Combate Global contract. So you're a free agent and got signed up then, is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So like Combate, I could have re-signed with them if I wanted. They gave me, they offered another contract. And, just sitting down with my management, with John and Dave, my coaches, Invicta was the next move for me, really. It's been difficult for people to follow my career in the last year just because of the way it's been aired, and a lot of people didn't know when I was fighting. And, the level, I'm fighting these really high level girls on Combate anyways, but Invicta will be a better platform, just because, I'm fighting these high level girls, beating them, but not really maybe getting the recognition there because no one's even known I fought on, except for my Instagram page.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we were sharing that frustration ourselves here, obviously wanting to talk about it. I know that we had been messaging over and back, and you'd been sending me the videos of, it was kind of like body cam footage of kind of like we were there cage side ourselves watching your fight. So I know that we're very happy that, you're going to be over with Invicta now, and, we're going to be on YouTube. It's going to be easily accessible as well. Was it, I know, look, you got that opportunity, and Combate provided you with like decent high level opponents as well, but it must have been a little bit frustrating that, to kind of build your support, or even people or your loved ones back home, and for us as well who wanted to watch your fights. It was really, we bought pay-per-view one time, we were saying, and you were supposed to be on it, and it didn't even happen. It must have been kind of frustrating from your end to go through that when you want people to watch your fights.
Yeah, so especially the first fight week, say, that I went out, because I didn't know what to expect. So they had told me it would be aired like that. My mom and dad would be able to watch it, and so then everything on that day just, I was all of a sudden leaving the hotel like 2 hours earlier than they'd said. And, I'd fought and won by the time, when I was originally meant to be aired, say like 3 p.m. that day. So I was ringing my parents saying I'd won, and they were like, wait, are you not supposed to be like getting ready for your fight? So yeah, it was frustrating because obviously I felt bad that a lot of friends, family, supporters would be after buying the link. And then, so yeah, it was very frustrating, but on the day of the fight, there's only so much of that I can worry about.
Yeah.
So I tried to forget about it as much as possible. And do you know what? Then my next couple of fights with them, I just didn't expect it to be aired. If it was aired, great. But at the end of the day, I'd been so inactive for, 18 months before my first fight with them that, that was the least of my priorities,
Yeah, 100%. Look, talking about your Kombatche spell, started off really well. Chantel Coetes got a win over her. Jessica Ortega, another win. Went in against Martiza Sanchez. It didn't go your way. And obviously then, coming in against Hannah Guy. Obviously disappointing to lose that Sanchez fight. Was there a reassessment of things that needed to be done after that fight? Because you came in and you looked really, really good against Hannah Guy in your last fight. And, proved you're well-rounded as a mixed martial artist as well by getting the guillotine choke.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say so much a reassessment. So what happened in the Murta fight, I feel like, I misjudged my distance a bit. I didn't realize, her reach, it was quite a bit longer. So I suppose I did have to go back to the drawing board, fix up maybe my guard a little bit, just be aware of those body shots. Actually, coming up to the Hannah Guy fight, I was dropped in training with another body shot. So it kind of brought it all back, like all the emotions back. So, and I was like, this can't happen again. I was like, that can't happen again, just in training. And I was like, look, that's the reality. There's always a risk of, even so like even if I have my elbow there or whatever, like there's only so much you've control over. So I think going into the Hannah fight, I was just just focusing on me. It's not what the other person can do, it's what like I do, how I react to it. So if I was dropped in the next fight, I probably would have just gotten, well, not say I could get back up. It's just controlling the controllables, so that's a textbook, for me, that's a textbook submission in the gym. I've caught, and the girls won't mind saying, I've caught everyone in the gym with a guillotine. It's my, I come from a striking background, so naturally people are going to shoot on me. So for over the years, it's just become like, an instinct. So I try get their head on the outside, try get my grips together, and I was able, it was step by step. I've never been so calm in a fight. I was thinking, why is there space by my elbow? I literally had John's voice in the back of my head, going through the motions. So I knew the minute it was on and we were on the ground, I was like, there's no way she's getting out of this.
Dee, I was looking at a picture there from 6 years ago earlier, and it was of MMA Cork, and in the picture, I think it was you, John Mitchell, and a few of those. Looking back on that, did you expect back then that you could be like in 6 years' time, you'd be with SBG Ireland and train with some of the best, and then flying out to the likes of Miami and now signing with Invicta?
I guess I didn't. I started MMA like by pure kind of chance in a way. Like I met Aaron Maguire boxing in UCC when I was in college, and he asked me for 3 years to go up training, and I just like we were good friends anyways. I can't say when I started there I didn't know what was going to happen. Like I was a year and a half training with Aaron and the guys in MMA Cork, and I realized, I was like, I could make a go at this. I could make a go at this. I saw Aaron Maguire really really good professional when he was fighting, and I was like, why not? Like that was like my dream growing up, was to fight for a living. And when I was kickboxing, it was just like, I was down in West Cork, so I'd never heard of anything like Glory, Pride, Bellator kickboxing, like none of that, like karate combat even wasn't an option. So like my sport, like it literally was like, the end was when I was finishing college, like get a job in the real world. And so I don't know, I feel like everything happens for a reason. But no, I literally couldn't have. If you told me back then, I'd say, no, you're joking. It's not possible.
Do you find it mad that the looking back at that picture and the group and how all of you've come up and gone on to all these different promotions and kind of gone on to have such good careers ever since as well?
Yeah, because John's over killing it in PFL at the moment, and Aaron and Jack are training and bringing up like absolute massive talents on the amateur scene as well. With some of them, you'll definitely see them turning pro as well over the next 12 months, I'd say. So no, it's phenomenal, to see the people around you, like your close friends, and because when I was training that time, like I was working full time in Cork, and you know, the only options I had was training at 6 a.m. in the morning and 6 p.m. in the evening. So, but like that, it was myself, John, Aaron, Jack, every single morning, you know, just kind of, it was a grind. We were in a warehouse that didn't even have a BER rating because there was just no heating. So I remember training over Christmas with like multiple layers of leggings, tracksuit bottoms, socks, everything you can imagine, and having to peel them off as you went on. So, you know, I know, like, look, John's gym started from there as well, but it does feel like a bit more of a luxury training in a nice heated, matted area with heating. Yeah.
In the big leagues now, do you mention there, you know, working full time while training and having to kind of, you know, go at 6 a.m., 6 p.m., etc. Are you working at the moment, or is it full time training for you?
So I went through a bit of a period of, say, I've worked in the bank in finance for years and years, and it's what brought me, it's what allowed me move to Dublin, you know, just opportunities I got with work. And, you know, I was miserable though. I was literally doing it as a way to make ends meet, to fund my training, trips, for everything for years. So I left my job in August 2021, August 2021. I left the bank, and, you know, I wasn't working. I was solely focused. I had no contract at that stage either. I hadn't even signed to Combate, and, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen. I just knew that if I didn't do it then, it was never going to happen, because I kept saying 6 months time, you know, I'll do it then. And, you know, like, you're having a birthday and then you're like, okay, no, age does matter in this sport as well. So I was pro at that stage. It was just a case of, yeah, I needed to just bite the bullet and give it everything, because it's not one of those sports that you can do like half measures. So I was about 18 months, 15, 18 months, just solely training full time. And like, it was great. It was perfect. But then it's kind of like, then I'm kind of sitting around. I have an extra few hours here and there. So I started January of this year, I started doing just a bit more part-time work again, you know, because, you know, at the end of the day, like, fighting is everything. But like, you know, you pick up injuries. I feel like you need to have a plan, not a plan, but like a plan A, B, C, and D, like, because MMA, it's so unpredictable, right? So I could literally, like, the best thing could happen. You could get signed to the UFC, you could be champ, you could be anything, and like, a career-ending injury could happen, you know. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm working part-time just on stuff. Like, when I finish, I have a bit of a passion for nutrition, right? So I did a course over COVID in nutrition. It's just better for me to understand it as well as an athlete. You know, I feel like you follow it a bit better. Say I work with Tristan, so when he tells me what to do, you know, if I have a better understanding of it, I'm more likely to follow it and do it, knowing why I'm doing it. So I'm doing a bit of work in nutrition online, and I'm also working a bit in finance, because I know I just like to be busy. My life's a bit chaotic. I've a lot going on, and then, but it's all very flexible. It's on my own time. So I train twice a day, Monday to Friday, and I kind of, yeah, fit it in flexible around my training.
Does all your banking and financial experience help you when you're trying to negotiate contracts with the likes of Combate Global and Invicta?
Well, I will say I'm very observant. I'm very observant. So, and also, like, you know, you get talking to people after some of the fights, and I think from negotiating the bank, you kind of know, I know how much roughly, like, from the size of a company and the, you know, the amount of people they have working for them, an estimate of how much they'd be turning over in a year. Like, yeah, I suppose to a certain extent, I can definitely negotiate a lot better, just having a bit of inside knowledge and how companies work and all that.
That's
yeah,
good.
for sure.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Helps.
Yeah.
Dee, when you're looking at, you know, a prospective new promotion, what are the things that you look at? Like, is it just, well, no, it's not just pay, I'm sure, but like, you know, having been through where you've just fulfilled a contract in an organization where maybe you didn't get everything out of it that you might have wanted going in, when you're then looking at your next step, like what are the kind of the key things that you're taking into consideration?
So I think for me going in was I didn't want to, I suppose what I loved about Invicta was when they tell you you're on a card, you're on the card. So, and that they have that capability. If someone falls out, even with, like my teammate Katie Saul had an opponent fall out like maybe a week before. It was such a short period of time. And for, I'm sure, you know, for women's MMA, it's quite difficult to find like short notice opponents, where I've just seen Invicta in the past. They just come in clutch, and so a week out from a fight, you'd have an opponent there, like, you know, whereas I don't think I could say the same for Combate. They can do it for the men, but Invicta being an all-female promotion, they just have like that maybe better matchmaking.
Yeah,
so that's definitely that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, that, like, you know, Invicta being around for a long time, and Shannon Knapp and the rest of the crew there, they really operate a tight ship. And, you know, with conversations with Katie and also with Danny McCormick as well, who are already there, I'm sure having those conversations with both Danny and Katie would have probably helped your decision as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'd only ever heard good things about Shannon from both of the girls, you know, and anytime I talked to them, it was all so professional. Like, they had zero complaints. And like, I'm definitely not one to complain, but some of my fight weeks were a bit chaotic. Like, even I suppose there was
I spoke to you
one of my the Jessica Ortega fight. Like, I was
I spoke to you about that fight.
Yeah, so I was in Miami for an extra 2 weeks. Yeah. So that was chaos. That was a bit, like, I was very lucky. In that situation. We spoke while I was over there, and one of the young fellas from the gym, Ryan Kyo, was over with me. But if that had been, say, John or Dave, like that, realistically, you know, I couldn't have asked them to stay on an extra week. So there would have been the possibility of being over there fighting and not having a coach potentially.
What happened there? Why were we over for an extra week, just for anyone who doesn't know?
So I had been scheduled to fight Jessica Ortega, and the morning of the fight, so there was the whole weight, she'd missed weight anyways, but her blood test results hadn't come back in time, or she'd gotten a blood test and they hadn't tested for something, and by the time the commission spotted it, she'd gotten a blood test the morning of the weigh-in, and they were supposed to have the results by fight night, and whatever happened, they didn't get them in time. So luckily they had a show the following week, so they put us on that card, which was, look, great for me. I traveled all the way. I didn't want to be over there and not fight, and they did look after us. They paid, or like, my show money, because obviously I made weight and everything, and they put us up for the week all on their expense. And like, it worked out really well. But I think if certain factors made it work out that way, I think I was quite fortunate.
Yeah, looking ahead to now your Invicta tenure, what kind of path are you looking to kind of forge? Obviously, Danny went in, she fought in as a backup for the tournament, and then was rewarded the title shot. The title is vacant in the flyweight division right now for you. How many fights are you looking to try and get before you would hope to fight for the title? Or, you know, do you want to get more experience in there? How ready do you feel you are to challenge for that title? I know you mentioned it already at the start, so that would kind of lead me to believe that you want to try and get up at that title as soon as possible.
Yeah, so for me, I think what would make sense, you know, I've had an extensive amateur career. I know I'm, you know, fairly early on in my professional career yet, but I think my experience level, you know, I don't see any reason why I couldn't be fighting for the title quite soon. You know, I can imagine Invicta have done those tournaments for the last couple of titles. I would like to think that I would just slot into a tournament spot, you know, and to be able to compete from the get-go. You know, realistically, my first fight for Invicta is slated for potentially, we'll just say September. We're going to be vague about it. But, you know, realistically, that's probably not in a tournament. but I'd imagine then my next fight for that, you know, go out in September, put on a great performance, you know, and then why not be in a tournament for the title straight away then?
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. When you're kind of looking at the competition that already exists within Invicta in the flyweight division, is there any names that are standing out to you that you'd like to go in there and compete against?
I'm terrible. I actually don't really know. Like I probably take more notice of who Katie and Danny fight than I do people in my own division. I don't know what it is. I did see there was one girl who obviously I'd watched, say, Hannah Guy's last opponent, so Caitlin Neal, but I'm sure she's fighting for PFL now. But she was one I was actually like excited about potentially fighting, but I don't think that would be on the cards. And yeah, I probably am. I'm just terrible with names in general. There's people that at training who I've trained with for like actually years, and like I'll call them the wrong. I'm terrible, so
Sorry, what's
I
your
can't
name?
really point out any names. Yeah, no, there's a terrible story about a guy from training called Jack, and I was calling him Pierce for way too long. It was very, very bad.
I hate when that happens.
And it's I'm going really red. I had to apologize to him at the Christmas party recently.
Oh gosh.
Do you obviously train, as you mentioned, alongside
Yeah.
Katie and Danny specifically? Like Danny went in there and put on one of the gutsiest performances I've ever seen in Irish MMA, and one of the greatest comebacks ever in Irish MMA to win the title. And now she's kind of knocking on the door of the UFC, you know, where she, you know, she's kind of calling for it now. Okay, maybe she might make a defense. There seems to be talk about that, but she's right up there. Is that inspiring to you going into this promotion to see, you know, someone that you're training with day in and day out, who's already gotten the title, who's right there on the precipice of signing? Does that inspire you when you're training with her on a daily basis, and now you've got that opportunity to make an impact as well?
Yeah, I see Danny as a very inspirational training partner, as a friend as well. You know, she's gone out, won the belt, and put on like some absolute like stellar performances. You know, you saw her come out in say for the title fight, a tough first round, and to be able to dig deep and turn that around and show up and dominate for the next 4 rounds, like you can't but be like inspired by performances like that, you know. And I suppose, you know, it made seeing what she did, even with the losses, you know, turning around, like that's the same. Like I took her mentality then when I lost to Herczeg, because obviously it's hard, you know, you know, like a first round, and that's why I felt for my opponent as well. But you know, seeing your teammates go out and doing that and how they deal with loss, it can only like teach you how to deal with it better. And also like strive to, like, you know, when Katie and Danny are showing up to training every day, it's like I've no excuse. Like of course I'm going to be there, because I'm not alone there for me. It's like I'm going to be there for them with their camps, because I'd like the same, you know, treatment when I'm in camp. And we're quite close, we're good friends. And even like outside the gym stuff, we're always like, they can always pick up the phone, I can pick up the phone to them. So we really do have a great kind of circle, and some great amateurs as well in the gym. It's a really kind of close knit team there.
Absolutely. And like, it seems there's a real kind of growing surge of women in Irish MMA, you know, having success. Obviously, yeah. Shauna Bannon just had her UFC debut. Hopefully Danny will be right in there next. And then there's a, you know, even just looking at the amateur scene, there's so many women in Ireland at the moment that are competing, which is great. You're 6 years into your career now in MMA, and you've mentioned, you know, in 2021 giving up the job. That's a massive commitment and a huge life choice to commit to MMA. So you're entering a new chapter of your career now with Invicta. What are your goals? Like what is the ultimate plan? What's your ideal scenario for you know, we're talking 5 years from now, what has happened in the career of Dee Begley?
What has happened in 5 years' time? Well, I would like to, you know, I look at who's held the flyweight belt in the UFC, like Valentina Shevchenko, and she's obviously a really well-rounded fighter, a really good striker. But I've said it from even early on in my career that like her striking is something I feel like I could match. And I think with the time I've put into my jiu-jitsu and my wrestling over the last couple of years, that's something I could definitely, you know, that I could definitely, I can only see myself being a UFC champion. You know, like you said, I'm making all the sacrifices. I'm making them daily, weekly. Like I've missed so many family occasions, so many family events, but like saying that, no one cares. Like none of my, like, they just want the best for me. But I can only be like UFC champion. You know, it's like when you've put in all the work day in, day out, like it has to be inevitable. And I have to have that mindset because, you know, it would have been so easy, right? It would have been so easy to, you know, stay in Cork. I had my whole life set up down there before I moved up here. I had all my friends, you know, family, loved ones, everything. And, you know, but like, what is like that's fine for someone else, but that wasn't, you know, I wasn't going to fulfill my dreams by staying there in that kind of comfort zone. You know, I had to, you know, it's scary and it's big decisions, and there's going to be a lot more big decisions that I'm going to have to make over the coming years. And I just hope that I can, you know, do myself justice and keep doing, you know, and keep making the decisions of, you know, what, like that I'll keep doing it to do what I love doing, you know, that I can just make that happen. And like I've been fortunate enough to be in a position for the last number of years to keep making it happen.
From the cold mats in the Cork gym to the warm beaches of Miami with Combatche, the next step is with Invicta FC. Dee, we're very, very excited to see the next chapter and see you progress up the flyweight division in Invicta. Really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. It's been a real pleasure. We'll keep it. We do know the fight is in September. That's all you would give us today. But we'll keep our ear to the ground on any updates and on potential opponents and dates as well. And we'll be sure to get that news out there. Thanks so much for taking the time, Dee.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, guys, for having me on. I really appreciate it. And thanks for all the support, you know, throughout Combatche. You know, with you've been fantastic. So I appreciate it.
Our pleasure, Dee. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
We'll be wrecking Shannon's head as well if she doesn't treat you right.
Yeah.
All right, boys, let's talk about some cage conflict. Another cracking card went down last night as we were recording. This was last Saturday, whether you're listening to this live. Main event, Tiernan Loughran took on Vladimir Stanka for the featherweight title. We had Jess Paulo and Garrett McCormack go at it for the middleweight title, and Sam Simon versus Julian Renault for the vacant super lightweight title. A jam-packed card, obviously interim welterweight title. Let's get into it, lads. The main event was a cracking fight on paper and a really, really good performance from Tiernan Loughran, who just didn't give Vladimir Stanka an inch in this main event. I'll send it over to you first, Andy. I always give, I spoke to Tiernan, I've told him this myself, and, you know, if anyone else is going to mold or shape their amateur career, you know, look at Tiernan Loughran, who's going in and taking the difficult fights. He did it when he was residing in the UK, taking on the likes of Teddy Stringer. He's coming over to Ireland and he's doing the exact same thing with his new team over at FAI now. And you can see that the levels and his confidence has really grown since making that move over to the FAI. Very unlucky in the Max Lally fight. Went out there and picked up a title at Ur, picked up another title here. It's been a good run of fights for Tiernan Loughran now, and he's doing the right thing and putting himself in these fights, Andy, to give him the correct tests in his amateur career.
Absolutely. Like as you mentioned, he came through some adversity in his amateur career, and that he lost a fight, drew a fight, lost a fight, and now he's rebounding great. And I saw, it's his second full camp for a fight with the lads up in FAI, and clearly it's working wonders for him. I thought he looked great here. Going in, as you mentioned, against a guy like Vladimir Stanka, the Stanka brothers. I think everyone's starting to talk about them on the Irish scene because they're so wild. And we'll get to the younger Alexandru Stanka later on, who was just insanely good, but going in, this is a tough test for Tiernan Loughran, and I thought he looked great. I thought he got to he got the finish in the second round. He did well in the first. I thought it was a close first round, but yeah, like he's just, I don't know, like I've spoken a little bit with Tiernan as well, and he just seems like a guy who kind of gets it, and he doesn't shy away from, like, if he loses a fight, he'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, no, maybe I lost here. Like, he's very realistic with where he's at, and I think that's standing to him. And I see development there. I see he's got great wrestling. His hands are coming out. Like, he looks sharp on the feet. Very, very kind of I'd say not orthodox is the right word, but just very straight shots. Technically sound, and I think that's like, I wouldn't be surprised to see him turn pro now soon enough. Maybe a couple more at amateur, and then onto the pros for 2024.
Very, very interesting. Look, we talked about the Stanka brothers, and rightly so, but we can also talk about the Loughran brothers, Caoilse, as well. Obviously, Caolan doing some great things. He was over there in Tiernan's corner as well. And I mean, Tiernan came out and he knew what he wanted to do, and it was really him imposing his game plan over Vladimir Stanka. Immediately closing the distance and looking to take the fight down. Obviously, Vladimir was trying to get some striking off on the feet, but Tiernan didn't give him an inch to breathe or kind of let him get settled in the fight, which was stopped in the second round, I believe, by rear naked choke. Yeah. Talk us through that performance and give us your opinion on that fight.
Yeah, he put up with, like, the Stankas, the brothers, they're both of them. They're so unpredictable, and they're just so good to watch, because they sometimes don't throw these straight shots. They'll throw these looping overhands with absolutely everything in them. Some spinning kicks. It's must watch action, and they'd be very difficult to read. But Tiernan really kind of weathered the storm that was coming to him. Implemented his grappling so well, and then in the second round just kind of managed to get the better, and then the grappling was really good in that, and then managed to get the back and get the rear naked choke. I thought he was fantastic. It was an impressive performance. Really
impressive. Just heavy pressure. Like, I thought once he got that
pressure.
Yeah, like, because as you mentioned there with the Stankas, like, it's when their stuff connects, it is just a joy to watch. But there is that risk, like, you throw a spinning kick and you're open to a takedown, and that's what led to Vladimir's demise in this fight. But like, yeah, once Tiernan got the fight to the ground and got the kind of triangled the legs and flattened them out, that was pretty much it. It took a while to get the choke, but it was pretty much it from there.
100%. Very good performance. Caoilse, I'll send it over to you. Jess Paulo took on Garrett McCormack for the welterweight title. He had Jess coming in after defeating Senan Coakley for the Cage Conflict welterweight title. I mean, with Jess Paulo, lads, it seems like every card that goes on that he's fighting on at this stage, he's been super, super active this year. It's been great to see him, and he's been doing very, very well inside the cage as well this year too.
He's on every card. It's mental. This fight's another one who are brothers also fight in the Irish scene, which is it's like a fighting families type of card. Was this Cage Conflict main card? But this was a close fight. Now I must admit, you had I think the first round may have been a bit of a toss up. I know it was a split decision in the end. I feel like Gareth won that. I feel it was a good decision. But he opened up that first round. He landed some two head kicks straight off the bat. They're very damaging. Paulo's trying to kind of clinch it up and get it up against the cage. I believe that Gareth would have taken the second round as well, maybe. But
second round was the clearest round, and that was definitely McCormack round. Yeah,
it was a big toss up, but a very good fight. Very like clash of styles almost, but high level amateur fight. Great one for a title, and fair play to Gareth McCormack.
It wasn't the most fan friendly fight I've ever watched. I would say it was a lot of it was a tough one for the judges to score. I'd say as well, because it was a lot of just kind of cage wrestling and not a whole lot of damage going on there.
That's the style I think that Jess brings in. Obviously Garrett as well, and it's that's the unfortunate thing about with the shorter rounds in the amateur kind of, you'll work hard to get the fight down, and then you have very little time to work anything on the ground. The round is over before you know it. But I mean, good win for Garrett McCormack there, Andy, coming in against a very kind of seasoned amateur at this stage in Jess Paulo, who's not afraid to jump in at welterweight or at middleweight like this fight was as well. And you pick up a win against Jess Paulo, that's a good win.
And you know what? I think it's one of those fights where I think both of them will learn from it and be like, I think both of them will look back in that fight and be like, okay, where could I have done more, or what could I have done differently? Because look, at the end of the day, it's about damage these days in fights, and a fight like that can, you know, if you have a performance like that as a pro, when it's a bigger cage and there's longer rounds, it's not going to win. That style is not going to win you fights. So you have to be landing. So I'd say it's probably one that they'll both learn from and improve from as well.
100%. I'll stick with you, Andy, for Sam Simon versus Julian Renault. Obviously, Sam Simon went in, picked up the decision there, 30-27 on all three judges' scorecards. And, you know, this on paper was a fairly mouthwatering kind of matchup as well. Obviously, we've seen Julian go in there and perform well at stages of his amateur career too. It wasn't his night. Sam Simon, like I said, did pick up the decision on the scorecards.
Yeah, it was just a really solid performance from Sam Simon. I thought that, you know, what I noticed most was he was really the one that was kind of imposing his will and dictating the action. Like, while he wasn't landing, like I say, if you looked at the stats for this one, you'd probably be surprised with the percentages, maybe, because I don't think a lot of his shots were landing, but he was landing a lot more, I thought, than Julian Renault was. And when he was throwing, like, Sam Simon was throwing with intent. He landed a couple of, as is kind of synonymous with him now, he's landed some big slam takedowns as well. I think it's Sam Slam Simon, they're calling him now. But yeah, look, I thought it was, like, it was, I know it's 30-27, but like, I didn't think it was a blowout by any means. I thought Renault put up a good fight, but I definitely thought it was the right decision. I thought that Simon was the aggressor throughout the fight pretty much, and was landing more of the shots, and especially in the third, he did particularly well as well. So yeah, look, he's the new, the vacant. I don't know if this was lightweight or super lightweight, because I think they said super lightweight, and the graphic said 155s, but I think it's the super lightweight title there. So yeah, fair play to him, and obviously coming back after a long time out in MMA, he's finding success so far in his return. And again, you're talking about brothers, another brother.
It was the card for the brothers, wasn't it, lads? Yeah, Sam Simon, the Loughrans and the Stankas all performing on that. That's funny. Quilcha, Peter Halpenny lost a split decision to Ben Johnson for the interim welterweight title. Obviously, with Jess Paulo fighting up at middleweight, this would be to see who's going to challenge him perhaps for the welterweight title next.
Yeah, it was excuse me. It was wasn't, I think, similar to the Jess Paulo fight, it wasn't the most fan friendly fights. Lots of grappling, kind of, they were cancelling each other out quite a lot when it came to the clinching exchanges and grappling exchanges. And I think Ben Johnson, he was looking for that guillotine quite a bit at times. But yeah, for the most part, good performance overall for Johnson. Halpenny, I say he'd be maybe a little bit disappointed, but it was still a good showing. And yeah, probably lines up the next contender for that welterweight title. Or not welterweight title, excuse me. You know.
Well, yeah, it does, yeah. It lines up the next shot for the welterweight title. We have the interim champion there now in Ben Johnson. Took home a split decision, 29-28, 28-29, 29-28 on all three judges' scorecards. It'd be interesting to see how that fight goes with Jess Paulo. I'm sure they'll likely try and put that on the next cage conflict card. Over to you, Andy. Pierce Cunningham and Kieran Heaney fought for the flyweight title there. I thought it was an impressive win by Cunningham, who won by a first round finish.
By Heaney.
By Heaney, excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah, it was really, really impressive. Like they kind of stood toe to toe, and went at it for a bit, but yeah, it was a really, really solid win from Kieran Heaney, who landed a big right hand. It was kind of hard to see from the way the camera angle was, because they were right up against the cage, and it went over there very quickly. So say it was hard to switch the camera pretty quickly like that, but you could see the first hand, right hand coming in, which dropped Cunningham, and then from there he followed up a ground pound, and that was all she wrote. But yeah, like the Heaney kind of put the pressure on early, and Cunningham landed a nice head kick off the mark, but yeah, this one didn't really last long at all. It was over quick, and a solid win from Kieran Heaney out of FAI.
Nice one. Yeah, apologies for getting that wrong. Moving over for the bantamweight title, you know, keeping with the old kind of theme of brothers, the Farahs is against the Stankas here as well, where Andreo Stanka took home a fantastic win on the scorecards against Philpott Farahs from SPG Cork. Quilcha, From what I'm hearing, fight of the night, it could be probably labeled. This was a
100%.
fantastic fight.
Easily.
And you know, the Farrises and the Stankas, they don't know how to not be in exciting fights, I don't think, at this stage.
Same with it's just mental.
Yeah.
Like this was just non-stop. The cardio on the two of these lads is just ridiculous. They didn't stop, and Farris, he put up a great fight, but he just couldn't put on his best performance against Stanka, who was just so unpredictable. The looping shots, he was putting everything into them. He was so unpredictable between the spinning back fist, the spinning kicks, the throws, takedowns. He was so good to watch. What a fight though, and what a chin from Farris. We put up a good fight, but just couldn't get off what he wanted to. And fair play to Stanka, he was absolutely outstanding. Fight of the night, hands down, incredible from the two of them.
Absolutely, and sure you're just as impressed as well.
It was just fucking bananas. Like it was incredible. This lad's only 18. Like I think Farris is quite young too, but like Alexandru Stanka's 18 apparently. Like it's nuts. Like to see an 18-year-old doing the things he's doing is crazy. And as he said, Farris, like you'd be all of us at one point you'd have like Farris and Mount, and then all of a sudden he's swept, and then he's sweeping Stanka, and he has Stanka in a triangle, and it was nonsense. I couldn't keep up with it. I don't know how anyone could score a fight like that, because it's just you're trying to just catch your breath watching it. So just hats off to the two lads, like just an amazing fight. And 30-27, but like Farris isn't coming out of that like a loser, in my opinion. I thought that was a great showing from both of them.
Yeah, I think we'd have to nearly do a full podcast if we were to talk about the rest of the fight, lads. Obviously, that was a great fight to finish off on. That Cage Conflict is available on pay-per-view if anybody does want to go back and look at any of those fights. And I think there was about 30 fights on the card overall, and it was a marathon event.
Went on to 1 a.m.
Yeah, as Taka mentioned in the interview as well, it went on quite long, but plenty of action and plenty of entertainment there with that pay-per-view. You'll definitely get value for money. And Cage Conflict, again, putting on another stellar show. And same for Premier FC, putting on another great show. That's also available as well on pay-per-view if you want to go back and watch that show too.
The last thing I'd say is I loved that it was Joe McColgan and Paul Hughes. Actually, I really liked the 3-man booth that they had at it. And I thought that it was very funny. Obviously, you know, Paul and Joe have trained together for years, so they've got a great rapport. But I thought they were brilliant on comms together as well. And obviously Phil Campbell, the legend, as well. But yeah, really enjoyed the commentary in this one too. So Joe McColgan was giving poor Paul Hughes a bollocking and not knowing the difference between a Darce and an Anaconda, which I then went to YouTube and learned what the difference between a Darce and an Anaconda was after. So
the simplest way, shoulder in or shoulder out. That's it.
Yeah,
shoulder
exactly,
in, Darce, shoulder out, Anaconda. That's it. That's the easiest way to remember. But it's an easy one to get caught out on. Let's do a little bit of quick housekeeping, guys. Obviously, we're getting a little bit tight for time here, but I'll go over to you first, Quill. Danny McCormick is bringing over a youth team to the IMMAF World Championships, which is happening this week. Just tell us a little bit about that, where it's happening, how it's happening, who's heading over, and how we can watch.
Yeah, so the annual IMMAF Youth World Championships are on. There's going to be your typical 3 different categories, your Youth C, your Youth B, and Youth A. So the age categories, Youth C is 12 to 13 years of age, Youth B 14 to 15, and then your Youth A is 16 to 17 years old. So big team going over once again. I imagine Ireland will do very well. They're always one of the best teams to go into that. They're an incredible team. Some great, like they usually, I think they're 5th in the medal table last year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they even better that again this year. The setup is just incredible. Danny McCormick and all the coaching staff there have been doing stellar work to put that together and get this all organized. It will be on in Abu Dhabi. So it's been going on in Abu Dhabi for the last 2 years, I believe. And you can watch it at IMMAF TV. It'll be on a pay-per-view. I'm actually not sure the cost. It's usually about tenner. And you get your 3 days worth of action there, and you see the next generation of Irish MMA fighters and MMA fighters that'll be representing
big
Ireland.
squad heading over there, Quailsha, isn't it? Like I think they have youths A, B, C, and D, so they're in different kind of categories as well. I mean, not to put you on the spot, anyone that would be like sticking out or worth keeping an eye on heading over there?
So one that I remember from, I think, medalists from last year, I know from Danny's gym, you have, is it Alison Siren, she was very good and impressed me. She's been on the competing in Muay Thai as well and very good. Liam Burke, Caolan Leach, Oisin Daly, Jamie Doyle. Actually read a story that was done on him from I think one of his local news outlets as well. So there's some of the youth A's that I'd be watching. Kevin Walsh is another one. So yeah, it's a very strong team overall. And yeah, plenty to watch.
Absolutely, plenty to watch, and we'll be watching on the 11th of August as well. James Gallagher, the Jimmy Show, will return to Sioux Falls in South Dakota. Featherweight contest for James Gallagher, is undefeated as a featherweight fighter. Obviously, his natural weight is 135, but he normally fights at. He goes in against James Gonzalez at Bellator 298. We've mentioned it before, but it's right around the corner, Andy. I know you're hoping to try and get the opportunity to speak with James ahead of that fight as well. But it's great, big fan of James. I'm always happy to see him fight. Has gone through a lot of trials and tribulations over the last couple of years with injuries and other stuff that's been going on as well. It's just great to see him back in there and competing again. And hopefully we can get to the fight without any hitches or any difficulties. And it'll be great to kind of see him going in there and competing again.
That's it. I just want to see James back fighting, really. I mean, and obviously, she's just poor old Chris Lencioni is originally scheduled
to him.
Yeah, fucking hell, it's scary stuff. Hopefully he pulls through and makes a full recovery. But yeah, like you just want to see James back in here from looking from the Irish perspective, looking at James. He just hasn't been fighting. Like we've talked this before. It's November 2021 was that loss to Patchy Mix, and his last win was October 2020. So that's we're coming up on
that loss
almost
to Patchy
3
Mix
years.
Is really that loss to Patchy Mix doesn't look too half bad now, isn't it? The way Patchy Mix has been fighting, and I mean James has been over in Thailand doing a lot of work now as well. So like James hasn't been fighting, but he's been putting the work in. That's a guarantee.
Yeah, and like I really thought that was on the feet that was the best James ever looked in that Patchy Mix fight, especially in the first round. I thought he looked brilliant. But yeah, it seems like I think I saw he was doing like a Q&A in his I must ask him about this as well. It seemed on his Instagram the other day anyway, and it seems that Thailand is kind of going to be the plan. He responded to someone saying he plans to go back over there and do his next camp there too. So he's obviously found something that works. Look, he was training under James Krause, so that obviously blew up completely with the betting scandal. So we're left without a team pretty much there. So it's a lot going on, a lot of changes in James's career and his life, I imagine. So just want to see him back in there really, and we will. So everyone tune into Bellator 298.
100%. Another person who's making a return is Andy Taz Young. Obviously has been a guest on the Owl Triangle before. Has had his fair share of bad luck in recent times as well. Was getting geared up to appear on that Cage Warriors Belfast card before injuring his hamstring or torn quad or something like that. I believe it was a pretty bad injury at the time. He will return on Saturday, August 5th at Fight Star Championships, and he'll take on Muhaddin Akbar in a flyweight title contest. So, that'll be Andy's first appearance since he's lost to Sam Creasy in March 2019. So he'll be eager to get back in there and get back in the win column as well. Good to see him back and good to see him fully recovered.
This is actually one that I wanted to ask you about, Ian, because I feel like, a lot of people maybe might not be that familiar with Andy Young because it's been a while he's been fighting, but like he was the guy, or like my understanding anyways, he was the kind of the guy at flyweight, and you having fought in the early days of Irish MMA at flyweight, like, Andy Young, former BAMA champion. I think he fought on, what was it? So WWFC champion, full contact contender champion. Like he's won a heap of titles. Was he kind of like the guy at flyweight when you were coming up?
He was. It was him. His name, Neil Seary, was also around as well. Obviously, Alan Philpott as well. Those were the three big ones, really. And Andy went in there and fought real tough competition throughout his career. One thing that, I struggled with, and definitely with Andy and Neil, I'd say they struggled with as well, is finding guys at that weight, to kind of compete against. But Andy did well in fighting on Cage Warriors and across Europe as well. And he picked up and he won and fought in championship fights and fought for Bama and Brave, and he will be leaving a kind of a 5-fight losing streak and coming back to try and get into the win columns for the first time since 2017. But, the defeats that he had were against really top level competition, like Savali Bagatinov and, obviously Sam Creasy as well, who's still competing at a high level in Cage Warrior. So, for Andy, it's like, I bet, and we talked to him the last time, and sure it'd be the same mentality, Andy, this time. It's trying to come back and rededicate himself. And he said he had a lot of things. Obviously, you can't control injuries. So it's great to see an OG coming back, and hopefully he can get the hand raise. And maybe we'll reach out and speak with him again after the fight. Probably too soon to do it right now. But look, it's great to see Andy back. Like I said, an OG, a very, very talented fighter. A record that reads 11 wins and 13 losses. But, a guy who went in there and fought the best type of competition that you could fight at that stage of his career when he was on the come up. So I'm excited to see him back in there, and hopefully he can get the win and kind of forge a path over the next couple of years for himself. Cool. That's it. Anything else that we need to cover? Yeah, a couple of other small things. Gary Rooney's debut has been officially announced. He will take on Ryan Taylor at Virtus MMA. Ryan Taylor coming in with a 0-6 record into this fight. Not a great record. Good to see Gary making his debut, but on paper, we would be thinking, lads, that this should be a fairly winnable fight for him. Dario Sinagoga, obviously out there at BFL and over in my neck of the woods in Canada, returns to lightweight. He's supposed to take on Gagan Gill. Not gone Dario's way now, trying to make weight at lightweight the last couple of fights. So it'll be interesting to see if he can, first of all, beat the scales, number one, and then get in there and perform against Gagan Gill. We'll keep a close eye on that. One guy who's coming out of retirement, we'll talk about someone who's gone into retirement, but first of all, we'll talk about someone who's coming out of retirement, and that's Alan Philpott, who's coming back to fight on Eternal MMA 78 on Saturday, September the 9th. He'll take on Sean Etchell. Alan is back. He says he has a new focus again, so I'm hoping that he can kind of get his head right. Like we've talked about Alan again, time and time again on this podcast. Bags of talent, just needs things to click for him at this stage of his career, and I feel that there's a good run in him if things do click. Be interesting to see how he gets on over there. Eternal, I believe Andy is an Australian promotion, isn't that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, he's living over there, so he's fighting on it. I think he's fought under that banner a couple of times as well recently. Yeah,
for sure. And
I think that's actually that's what's her name from the that's in the UFC, the Scottish Australian fighter. Yeah, I think it's her dad. Yeah, he runs it.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Nice. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Obviously, coming out of retirement, Alan Philpott. Going into retirement, Dean Barry, who announced his retirement after his loss in. I don't even know. It wasn't really an MMA fight, to be real. It was more of a kind of a mixed rules striking exhibition over in Titan. Obviously, things didn't go his way. There was weight difficulties. Dean went out and ended up being on the receiving end of a kind of a spinning back elbow, which did pretty big damage to his orbital bone. Had to go for a procedure when he got back home. And ultimately, after that, had made the decision to step away from mixed martial arts and combat sports, and seems very comfortable in doing that. And I guess, guys, if your heart is not in it and you don't feel that you have the love for it anymore, the right thing to do is to step away. But a short career, but lots of talking points in Dean Barry's career, Andy.
Yeah, I tell you what, a short career, but it was eventful. Look, this is it's obviously a story because it's we don't have that many fighters, although we're getting way more these days, which is brilliant. But in the UFC in recent years, so Dean Barry was one of those where was one of the Irish hopefuls that went in there. Obviously, his UFC debut didn't go according to plan, and that was his last, I guess, full MMA bout. Was against Mike Jackson that time in the UFC. And look, I suppose there's been fights that have fallen out and ups and downs, but yeah, he ends his career with a 4-2 record. But as you said, look, it sounds like he's making a decision that's right for him and for his family. So wish him nothing but the best. And that's it. We thoughts.
Shall wrap it up. Anything to add, Quilsha, before we wrap it up? We all good?
No,
perfect. That's good. Episode 37 in the bank. Thanks so much to Taka Mhandu and Dee Begley, who spent the time to come and talk to us on today's show. Thank you for listening along with us and for all of your support. Like we said, we love and appreciate you all. Thanks for listening. If you like the podcast, share it with a friend. If there's someone who has maybe looked at Shauna Bannon's debut on Virgin Media and have a newfound love for mixed martial arts or want to get to know Irish mixed martial arts a little bit better, well, send them our way. We're gladly oblige and tell any new people who are into MMA about the up-and-coming talent, from the regionals to the professional scenes. We'll cover it all here, and we enjoy doing it so much. If you like what you hear, like I said, tell a friend. Like, subscribe.
Leave a review. And if you listen on Spotify, go over to Apple and leave a review there too. They won't
reviews, and 5 stars. Helps us out a lot. Helps us get out into the algorithm and helps us
these are
grow.
legends for listening. In fact, if you're having a bad day today and you're listening to this, just know that you're a fucking legend, because we say so. So if anyone's giving you shit, just be like, no. They said I'm a legend.
Fair play. Thanks, Tony Robbins. See you out.
Gurmila Mahakwir for Slongafol, you legends.